Chapter 44. On the way back from Baligo, Zhang Kai kept thinking about what Mr. Lu said. I agreed to let Qianqian take care of Xiaolong, because I wanted her to repay my kindness. The hero saves the beauty and the beauty repays the hero with her body. That is a legendary story. I never thought about it. Now that Xiaolong's injury has recovered, I want to bring Qianqian back in a few days. It's not good for her to always stay at Brother Zhang's place. What could Zhang Kai say? There was a gap between his family and the Lu family. Xiaolong was a farmer. Compared to Lu Qian, a well-educated girl, he was indeed unworthy. These days of getting along, in the eyes of the Zhang family, Lu Qian was a golden phoenix. The Zhang family didn't have a parasol tree, so how could the phoenix fall? Although Lu Qian really liked Zhang Xiaolong, and was willing to live with the Zhang family, who knew what it would be like when they really lived together in the future. Rather than being upset in the future, it was better not to be together now. It was a pity for Lu Qian, this good daughter-in-law, and Xiaolong's infatuation. Zhang Kai sighed as he walked. He sighed all the way to the Guozhuang house. His brows didn't loosen. At home, Zhang Xiaolong and the others were naturally waiting, hoping that Zhang Kai could bring back good news. But when they saw Zhang Kai enter the door with a gloomy face, they knew that things didn't go well. Zhang Kai entered the house and sat on the chair. Zhang Xiaolong quickly poured water for him. Zhang Kai drank the water and rested for a while. Then, he told them about what happened at Mr. Lu's house. Everyone was nervous and didn't speak. Guo Sufei asked Zhang Kai, "Do you want to tell mother about this?" Zhang Kai thought for a while and said, "Don't tell her first. Mother knows that we went to Baligo. If there is good news, she will be the first to tell. Since we don't tell her, she must know that it's not good news." "Oh right, where's Lu Qian?" Guo Sufei pointed to the inner room and said, "When she saw you come back, this child was shy and hid first. I'll call her out now, and tell her what her father said. Let her pack her things first." Zhang Xiaolong said from the side, "Mother, I'll go call her. I don't think Qianqian will go back. There's no need to pack her things first." Guo Sufei looked lovingly at Zhang Xiaolong, who was in love, and said, "Okay, you go. Maybe Qianqian can persuade her father." Not long after, Lu Qian followed Zhang Xiaolong out of the room. Her face was a little pale. She looked at everyone and didn't say anything. She quietly sat down on a chair in the corner. Everyone also sat down and looked at Lu Qian quietly. Actually, in Lu Qian's heart, she was racking her brains and could not understand what her father meant. Ever since she was young, her father had always followed her wishes, and had never gone against her wishes. She had the final say in the matter of transferring her husband. In the past, there were countless people who came to propose marriage, but her father had never expressed his opinion. However, based on her own likes and dislikes, this was indeed strange. She had decided, but her father wanted to oppose it. Could it be that he was afraid that Uncle Zhang would cheat him? However, it shouldn't be. Could it be that he really wanted her brother to get married first, and then consider her? Thinking of this, Lu Qian was also troubled. Lu Kai's vision was surprisingly high. He didn't even like the girls in the nearby villages. If she waited for him to get married first, wouldn't she become an old lady? Lu Qian raised her head and looked at everyone's eager eyes. She forced a smile and said, "I don't quite understand what my father means. In a few days, when my father comes to pick me up, I will ask him properly." Then she looked at Zhang Xiaolong and nodded at him. Only then did Zhang Xiaolong reveal a trace of a smile from his face. This night was destined to be a depressing night. Everyone didn't eat well for dinner. They hurriedly ate a little, and then cleaned up. When Guo Sufei was delivering food to her grandmother asked if Zhang Kai had brought back good news. Just as Guo Sufei was about to stutter, her grandmother said, "It's okay, Sufei. I know our family's situation very well. These children are very outstanding, but our family's situation is like this. It's normal for others to dislike us. Let the children leave it to fate. If it's not a family, they will enter the same house. Our daughter-in-law will marry over sooner or later." When Guo Sufei heard this, she was both happy and worried. She was happy because her mother could see more clearly than herself. She was worried because her mother's last wish could not be fulfilled. She was a bit unfilial. She was worried because her mother's last wish could not be fulfilled. After dinner, everyone was not in the mood to work. They chatted for a while, and then went to sleep. Only Zhang Kai and Guosufei discussed in low voices in the central room for a long time before returning to their own room. There was no oil lamp in the inner room. Guosufei groped around in the dark and got on the Kong. She laid there, and was still thinking about the things that she discussed with Zhang Kai. At this time, she heard Lu Qian tossing and turning and couldn't sleep well. She asked her, "Are you thinking about your father's words?" "Yes, auntie." Lu Qian answered vaguely. Guosufei said, Qian, in fact, your father is also good to you. After all, you are still young and haven't experienced many things. Your life experience is also lacking. Your father has his own ideas and hopes that you can live a happy life. We all understand. After all, a family like ours can't give you much. When your father was young, it was because of the family's financial situation that he didn't let your mother take good care of her body. This caused his lifelong regret, so he values this very much. Most importantly, I think he wants to find a scholar for you. He and your brother are both scholars. Naturally, they hope that your husband is also a scholar. You two can recite poems and write couplets. This kind of life is what you should have. As for Xiaolong, he is my own son. Of course, I think that he is very good. However, our family's financial situation was indeed not good back then, so we didn't let him study. This was also forced by life. Who doesn't want their children to be successful? I know, auntie. I now vaguely understand father's intentions, but in my heart, I still feel that reciting poems and being romantic is bliss. You fetch water and I water the garden. You plow the field and I weave cloth is also a kind of bliss. The two people in the family have the same heart and love each other. Although they are somewhat poor, they can change it through their own hands. I grew up in the countryside, so I don't have to worry about my mother's health. My body is very good. Although I haven't done farm work since I was young, I believe that if I do, I won't be worse than others. Lu Qian said, very unconvinced. Guosufei smiled and said, Qian, you are really a child who doesn't admit defeat. In fact, marriage is often not just a matter between two people. You have to integrate into a new family and adapt to their life. You also have to let them accept you. It is not just your husband who can accept you. Moreover, there are many small things like oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar and other small things in the family. Any small thing will make your life unhappy. Lu Qian said, Auntie, I know all about these things. When I was at home, father and brother didn't know how to do housework. I did everything. I believe that I am fully prepared for all of these. And during the time I lived here, I feel that the atmosphere at home is very good. It is very harmonious. I can feel a feeling here that I can't enjoy in my home. I feel that I can integrate into this family very well. Her voice became softer and softer, as if she was embarrassed. Also, the most important thing is that I think Xiaolong is very good. He is very good in all aspects. I don't want to lose the opportunity to make my life happy because of family circumstances. In fact, I have hesitated before. I feel that Xiaolong is illiterate, and there is nothing to say to me. I also thought that I can teach Xiaolong to read and write. He also agreed. I think that we will live a good life and you won't have to worry. Lu Qian's voice was so low that it could not be heard. Fortunately, it was dark and Lu Qian's face was already red. She was able to say all these words. Guosufei was very gratified when she heard this. She also comforted Lu Qian. Qian, today you have said all these. Auntie is very happy. You also saw that our family likes you very much. Not only Xiaolong, your uncle and I also sometimes see you as our daughter-in-law. Xiaohua and Xiaohu also want to call you sister-in-law. We will do our best to marry you. Do you still remember the last time in Lu Town? Didn't that bully compensate us with money? Lu Qian said, Oh yes. If you didn't mention this, I would have almost forgotten. That is not a small sum of money. Guosufei said. Just now, I discussed with your uncle. If your father is really poor because our family is poor and doesn't have enough money to let you live a good life, we plan to exchange the banknotes. I believe that this amount will definitely satisfy your father. Lu Qian immediately stopped her. She said, Auntie, this money must not be used now. If the bully has an ambush in Lutown's bank, then wouldn't we be walking into a trap? If we are not 100% sure, we must not do this. Otherwise, we will not be able to live a normal life, let alone let my father be relieved. Moreover, my father is not a person who only cares about money. He must have other ideas. Everything will wait for him to come. Guosufei also said, That's right. I also said that to your uncle. But your uncle seems to have drilled himself into a dead end. He is afraid that your father will take you away, so he thought of this method. Later, when your father comes, we will properly ask him about his thoughts. Anyway, I feel that if Xiaolong does not look for you, he will not take a fancy to other girls. Maybe he will not look for other girls for the rest of his life. Lu Qian smiled and said, Auntie, look at what you are saying. How can I be that good? It is also our fate that I can meet Xiaolong. Guosufei said, Yes, it is fate. But fate is determined by the heavens. It depends on the person to be able to turn fate into a real family. The heavens do not care about this. We should go to bed early and have enough energy to take care of our family. Lu Qian said, Okay, Auntie. You should also go to bed early. Lu Qian told Guosufei about her worries. She felt very relaxed and fell asleep in a short while. Guosufei heard Lu Qian's light snoring and felt happy. Even if this kind of girl could not be her daughter-in-law, she wanted to wish her happiness. Thinking about it, she also fell asleep. Only in the opposite house, Zhang Kai and Zhang Xiaolong could not fall asleep. They did not know when they fell asleep. Chapter 45. The next morning the sun still rose. The Zhang family was preparing for the spring plowing. Zhang Xiaolong was obviously absent-minded. He looked at Lu Qian from time to time, but Lu Qian acted as if nothing had happened. Lu Qian's calmness made Zhang Xiaolong's heart more and more uneasy. He finally found a chance to pull Lu Qian to the side and asked her softly, What do you plan to do? Lu Qian also had some intention of teasing him. She smiled and said, What do you mean? Zhang Xiaolong was a little unhappy and said, Your father is coming to pick you up. Are you preparing to go home? Lu Qian said, Yes, my father is coming to pick me up. Naturally, I want to go back to my own home. Zhang Xiaolong's face was a little pale and said, I knew it. The words you said before were all to comfort me so that my injuries would heal sooner. Now that my injuries are healed, you won't lie to me anymore. You want to go back to your stable home. Our small courtyard probably doesn't have anything to attract you. Lu Qian saw that Zhang Xiaolong was really taking it seriously. She quickly put away her teasing expression and said, Xiaolong, look at what you're saying. Do you think that what I said before was to comfort you? Don't you know what I'm thinking? Zhang Xiaolong was stunned and said, It's not that I don't believe you, but at this juncture, you're so calm, and my heart is so anxious that it's about to burst into flames. Of course, I want to ask you what solution you have. Lu Qian smiled and said, You usually look very smart, but in the end, you've fallen into a cliché. Isn't there a saying, when the water comes, escape through the earth. When the soldiers come, block them? Of course, my father wants me to go back, and will come to pick me up. But whether I go back or not, isn't it up to me? Usually my father goes along with my matters. This time it's a little unexpected. I think I should wait for my father to come and ask him properly. Once I know the reason, there will naturally be a solution. Why are you in a hurry? Zhang Xiaolong smiled and said, I'm not as confident as you are. Of course, I'm confused because I'm concerned. Moreover, I think that we should take the initiative to talk to your father. It's better than waiting here for your father to find us. Lu Qian looked at Zhang Xiaolong and praised. You are right. If we take the initiative to attack, we will have the initiative in our hands. When my father comes, we will be at a disadvantage. Maybe there will be other changes. And why don't I go home first and see the situation first? Zhang Xiaolong was embarrassed and said, I just had a little idea. I didn't think as deeply as you did. Moreover, I was thinking that I should accompany you. My injuries have already recovered, so walking for half a day shouldn't be a problem. Lu Qian pondered for a moment and her eyes lit up as she said, Your idea is even better. Let's go find my father and see what he's up to. Zhang Xiaolong said worriedly. Qianqian, what if your father doesn't change his mind and insists that you go back? Lu Qian said slyly. That won't happen. I naturally have a way to deal with my father. He will agree. Zhang Xiaolong was still worried and said, I'm talking about if. What if? Lu Qian said seriously. Brother Xiaolong, you must know my thoughts. There are many things that we haven't said to each other clearly. However, you must believe me. I will accompany you. At the end, her face turned red and her head couldn't help but lower. Zhang Xiaolong gathered his courage and reached out to pull the soft hand in front of him. He said in a low voice, Qianqian, you are so good. This time, Lu Qian didn't let him pull her. She broke free from his hand and said, You should think about when to go to 8 Mile Groove first. After saying that, she ran away. Zhang Xiaolong looked at Lu Qian's back and savored it for a long time. The uneasiness in his heart had long disappeared. When Zhang Xiaolong returned to everyone's sight, the horn of war had already sounded in his heart. He walked in front of Zhang Kai and said, Father, Lu Qian's father didn't say when to pick her up. Zhang Kai looked at Zhang Xiaolong and said, That's right. He just said in a few days. He didn't say a specific date. Zhang Xiaolong said, It's like this. Father, I want to go to 8 Mile Groove with Lu Qian and have a good talk with Lu Qian's father. When Zhang Kai heard this, he was stunned. He frowned and said, Is this your idea or Lu Qian's idea? Zhang Xiaolong said, It's my idea. I also discussed it with Lu Qian just now. She also agreed. Zhang Kai's frown immediately loosened. He smiled and said, Good boy, you have a way. When father was young, he didn't have such courage. Not bad, hee. While laughing, Guo Sufei walked over and asked, Child's father, what's so funny? Zhang Kai said, Our son is promising. He knows to find a wife for himself. Guo Sufei didn't quite understand what he meant. Zhang Kai told Guo Sufei what Zhang Xiaolong said to him just now. Guo Sufei was also very happy and said, This idea is not bad. When do you and Qianqian plan to go? Zhang Xiaolong said, Mother, didn't Mr. Lu say that he will be here soon? I think we should hurry before he comes. I think we should go now. Guo Sufei looked at the sky and said, If we go now, we won't be able to come back today. Why don't we wait until after lunch? I'll go cook with Qianqian. Sigh, if I don't have Qianqian's help in the future, I won't be able to cook. Xiaolong, you have to leave Qianqian behind. Zhang Xiaolong smiled and said, Okay, mother. I will definitely. Lunch was naturally finished in a hurry. Zhang Xiaolong and Lu Qian packed up and prepared to go. At this time, Zhang Xiaohu said, Big brother, it doesn't seem safe for the two of you to go out. Why don't I go with you? Moreover, Zhang Kai also said, Xiaolong, you should also bring something. It's not good to go empty-handed. Zhang Xiaolong said, I know, father. When we reach the village entrance, I'll go buy some. When Lu Qian heard that Zhang Xiaohu wanted to go, her eyes lit up. She said to Zhang Xiaolong, Let Xiaohu go with us. It's safer for the three of us to go. Moreover, you don't have to buy anything. It's good enough to bring some of the well water at home to my father. Zhang Xiaolong slapped his forehead and said, Look at me. Your father loves this water the most. I forgot. Zhang Xiaohua jumped up from the chair and said, I'll go pick some fresh ones. You guys prepare something to hold the water. When Xiaohua returned with the well water, Zhang Xiaolong borrowed a sealed bottle from a neighbor and filled it to the brim with well water. This bottle of water was naturally taken by Zhang Xiaohu. Thus, the three of them went on their way. There were 2 roads from the Guozhuang house to Baligo. One was along the river through a bamboo forest, and then climbing a few hills, passing by the side of a few villages. The other was on a small bridge. There was a large road in the direction of Benlu town. After walking to a village, it was still a large road that led to Baligo. The small road was rugged and not easy to walk on, but it was short. Although the large road was easy to walk on, it was 2 to 3 times the distance of the small road. Zhang Xiaolong and the others naturally chose the small road. Now that it was spring, the river water had long been frozen. The gurgling stream flowed slowly, and the sound was indescribably pleasant to the ears. The birds were also active, chirping. Along with the sound of the water, It made their footsteps particularly relaxed. Zhang Xiaolong and Lu Qian walked in front hand in hand. It seemed that they no longer had the scruples of being at home. They wantonly enjoyed the feeling of each other's hands. They looked around and admired the spring scenery while talking non-stop. Zhang Xiaohu, who was some distance away from them, fell behind. He held the bottle of water in his hand and smiled as he looked at his elder brother and future sister-in-law. In his heart, other than envy, there was also a trace of expectation. He was looking forward to a beautiful encounter in Baligo. Zhang Xiaolong's heart was smeared with honey. He hoped that this long journey would never end, so that he could enjoy the happiness of this afternoon forever. He had never felt that walking was such a happy thing, nor had he felt that the mountain scenery that he had been tired of looking at on weekdays was so beautiful. He had never thought that Lu Qian's words were better than the sound of the river and the birds. He had never thought that Baligo was so close to him from the Guozhuang house. It seemed that they had arrived at the place as soon as they started walking. When Lu Qian pulled back her hand, he was still dizzy and asked why. It was not until Lu Qian shyly said that Baligo, where she grew up, was in front that he realized that the journey of walking in the clouds had come to an end. Lu Qian led Zhang Xiaolong and Zhang Xiaohu into the village. From time to time, people who knew Lu Qian greeted Lu Qian. Some girls and aunties even stared at Zhang Xiaolong and Zhang Xiaohu's faces unscrupulously and scanned their bodies. Not only did Lu Qian's face turn red, but Zhang Xiaolong and Zhang Xiaohu were also at a loss. After all, they did not ask who Zhang Xiaolong and Zhang Xiaohu were. Naturally, Lu Qian could not explain. Although she wanted to let them think what they wanted, she did not want them to think blindly like this. However, her house was still very far from the village entrance. Presumably, not long after she reached home, the topic of Zhang Xiaolong would probably spread throughout the village. When Lu Qian brought Zhang Xiaolong and Zhang Xiaohu home, it was very coincidental that Mr. Lu and Butcher Lu were drinking tea and talking in the small courtyard. As soon as Lu Qian entered the door, she saw Mr. Lu sitting on a small stool under the eaves. He was holding a teapot and pouring tea into a teacup. Butcher Lu, on the other hand, was holding a wine gourd that he usually used. From time to time, he would bring it to his mouth and take a sip. When Lu Qian saw her father, the rims of her eyes seemed to turn red. She shouted, "Father," and ran over. Mr. Lu was also stunned. When he saw that Lu Qian had returned, he was naturally happy in his heart. He put down the teapot and stood up to welcome her. Although it had not been long since they last met at the Zhang family, this time, Lu Qian had returned home. The feeling was naturally different. Lu Qian threw herself into her father's embrace and hugged her father's arm like a child. Mr. Lu lovingly stroked her hair and only said, "You're back. It's good that you're back." Chapter 46. The splint on Zhang Xiaolong's arm had already been removed, but it was still secured with a belt and other things. He placed it in front of his chest, while his other hand hung naturally by his side. He stood not far behind Lu Qian, watching the touching scene of Mr. Lu and his daughter reuniting. His relationship with his father and mother was very good, but he had never experienced separation, so he naturally didn't know how it felt. Now that he saw his beloved act like this, he felt gratified for her, and knew that his decision this time was probably the right one. Zhang Xiaohu stood beside Zhang Xiaolong, still holding the bottle of water in his hand, but his eyes were looking around the courtyard, as if he was looking for someone. Mr. Lu lovingly stroked his daughter's hair, and his eyes also looked over Lu Qian's head towards Zhang Xiaolong and Zhang Xiaohu. He smiled and nodded at them, and his hand also moved away from his daughter's head, waving slightly at them to express his apology. Zhang Xiaolong and Zhang Xiaohu naturally also nodded in acknowledgement, and waited at the side. When Butcher Lu saw that Lu Qian had returned and Mr. Lu had gone up to greet her, he didn't get up and continued to drink his little wine. When he finished his wine, he saw the two brothers standing at the door, so he stood up and said with a smile, "I was wondering who sent Qian back, so it's our two great heroes. Come in quickly, have a few drinks with uncle." Zhang Xiaolong and Zhang Xiaohu smiled, and walked towards the square table under the eaves. Lu Qian, who was being intimate with her father, heard the two words drink, and raised her head saying to Butcher Lu, "Second uncle, Xiaolong's injuries haven't completely healed, so he can't drink for the time being. If you want to drink, look for Xiaohu. Butcher Lu said loudly. You little girl, now you're siding with an outsider. Lu Qian said sweetly, second uncle. Butcher Lu said. All right, don't call me that, I know. I don't usually see you call me second uncle. Mr. Lu, on the other hand, looked thoughtfully at the farmer boy who was walking towards him. His youthful face was full of vitality. He did not look like a yes-man like the other farmers, nor did he look as careful as Zhang Kai. His eyes seemed to be very bright. The clothes on his body were very shabby, but they were very clean. They fit him very well. His footsteps were also very steady. Each step left a footprint, which made people feel very at ease. Mr. Lu naturally knew why Lu Qian brought Zhang Xiaolong back. Although he strongly disapproved of this marriage, he did admire Zhang Xiaolong. At this time, Zhang Xiaolong and Zhang Xiaohu also walked in front of Mr. Lu and respectfully bowed to him. Mr. Lu didn't stand on ceremony this time. He simply gestured and said, You've come a long way. Seeing that it's getting late, it's not likely that you'll be able to return to the Guozhuang house today. Why don't you stay at my place for the night? You can go accompany my second brother first. I'll go after talking with Qianqian. After the two brothers agreed, they walked under the eaves and each picked up a stool to sit down. They chatted with Butcher Lu. Mr. Lu then said to Lu Qian, Qianqian, let's go to the study to talk. Lu Qian let go of her father's arm and said, Father, you go first. I'll go make some tea for you. Xiaolong and I specially brought this from the Guozhuang house. Do you want to drink it? Mr. Lu didn't say anything. He helplessly shook his head and smiled as he went back to the study. Lu Qian walked under the eaves and took the bottle of water from Zhang Xiaohu's side. She glanced at Zhang Xiaolong and said, You two go chat with second uncle first. I'll go boil some water in the kitchen. I'll also make some side dishes and snacks while I'm at it. After walking for the whole afternoon, you must be hungry. Lu Qian went to the kitchen and put the well water on the fire to boil. When the water was ready, she looked around the empty kitchen and picked up some ready-made items to make two simple dishes. She couldn't make any snacks and only had a few leftover biscuits. She took them out along with the side dishes to satisfy the two brothers' hunger. Butcher Lu happily ate the side dishes and drank a little wine. He even poured a cup for Zhang Xiaohu from time to time. He really didn't drag Zhang Xiaolong to drink. Not long after, the water boiled. Lu Qian carefully brewed the tea and carried the tea set and water to the study. Before entering the study, she turned around to look at Zhang Xiaolong. The two of them looked at each other and Lu Qian nodded. Her eyes were full of certainty before she turned around and walked into the study. In the study, Mr. Lu was absent-mindedly reading a light book. When he saw Lu Qian walk in, he put the book down and sniffled, saying, The water in the Guozhuang house is really different from the rest. The tea is so fragrant. It's rare. Lu Qian placed the teacup in front of her father. She watched as her father sniffed the tea fragrance and tasted the tea sip by sip. He then closed his eyes to savor the taste and didn't open his mouth to speak. After Mr. Lu drank for a while, she said, Father, how's the tea? Mr. Lu said, This tea is naturally much better than what I usually drink. However, it's still not as mellow as the one I drank at the Guozhuang house last time. It's probably because it's been stored for too long. It's not as good as fresh water. After that, Lu Qian didn't ask any more questions. Mr. Lu only focused on tasting the tea and didn't open his mouth to speak. The two of them sat across from each other for a while. Mr. Lu thought for a while and smiled, opening his mouth first. Qian, this time you came back in a hurry. Is there something you want to tell your father? Lu Qian blushed and said, Father, you're asking the obvious. If I didn't come back, wouldn't you be coming to pick me up in a few days? Mr. Lu sighed and placed the teacup on the table, saying, Qian, ever since you were young, your father has always let you have your way. I haven't interfered much with you. This time, your father didn't listen to you. You should know your father's painstaking efforts. Lu Qian thought for a while and said, I'm guessing that father's intention is that you're afraid that I'll suffer in the Zhang family and have to do farm work every day. You're also afraid that Zhang Xiaolong is a rough village man. You're afraid that my life won't be as good as it was at home? Mr. Lu nodded and said, "This life isn't a problem of one person. It's the life of two people. If one person likes to study and the other wants to do farm work, then the direction of life will diverge. Naturally, life will be boring and won't last long. Moreover, the Zhang family is very poor. You should know in the time you've been there that it won't be as comfortable as living in 8 Mile Valley." Lu Qian also nodded and said, "Father, you're right. I've considered all of this. I've even told Zhang Xiaolong's mother. She said something similar to what you said. She also hoped that I would consider it carefully." Mr. Lu asked curiously, "She really said that?" Lu Qian said, "Of course. I didn't think that auntie, a village woman who doesn't know many words, would be so reasonable." Mr. Lu sighed and said, "That's really rare. No wonder she could raise such a magnanimous child." Following that, Mr. Lu said, "Actually, you can't understand all of this. It's just that we've experienced it before. With your personality, even if we say it, it might not be useful. Only when you hit a wall will you understand Father's painstaking efforts. However, although your mother's matter happened a long time ago, it's still vivid in my mind. If I had the ability, I wouldn't have let your mother suffer and leave us early. Therefore, I don't want your mother's tragedy to happen to you again." Lu Qian naturally had a card up her sleeve and said, "Father, perhaps you're too stubborn on this point. If you had the ability, would you still be the current you? Can Yangqin be happy with you? If she wasn't happy, then what's the value of living for a lifetime? But Mother respects you, loves you, and has only been with you for a short 10 years. However, the happiness that she has is something that others can't get in their lifetime. Tell me, which is her choice?" Lu Qian continued, "Father, actually I've always thought that life's fate has already been arranged. Whether you're sad or happy, it's all a kind of life. A person's life is a kind of trajectory. When all sorts of trajectories are intertwined together, it's the whole life. Mother's trajectory is destined to involve you, and your trajectory is also destined to lead you and Mother's happiness. You've always blamed Mother's death on your ability, saying that you couldn't take good care of her. In fact, that's not the case. From the moment Mother met you, our family's life had already been created. Mother's happiness and ending was already predetermined. Any change would be futile. If Father was obsessed with politics back then, you would naturally have neglected Mother. Mother wouldn't have left us early, but would she have lived happily?" Seeing Mr. Lu fall into deep thought, Lu Qian continued, "Actually, I've always been thinking about my meeting with Zhang Xiaolong. I've told you before that from the moment I met Zhang Xiaolong in the textile shop, our trajectories have been intertwined. I'm sure Father knows about the things that happened during that time. There's no need for me to go into detail. I can only use the word fate to describe my relationship with Zhang Xiaolong. Also, there's a very important thing that Father doesn't know about." Mr. Lu was stunned and said, "What is it?" Lu Qian said mysteriously, "Father, do you think that the water in this Guozhuang house is especially delicious?" Mr. Lu said, "Yes, so what?" Then Lu Qian told Mr. Lu about her grandmother's illness and how she went to Lu Town to see a doctor. Mr. Lu was clearly shocked and asked, "Are you sure that this is the effect of the well water?" Lu Qian said, "Of course. Just look at Zhang Xiaolong's arm and you'll know. Have you ever seen a broken arm heal so quickly in a short month? Also, the last time you came to see me, she said that my skin is much better than before. I can feel it myself now." Mr. Lu frowned and didn't ask any more questions. Lu Qian then continued, "Father, think about it. This well water is a priceless treasure. Your body has always been very weak. Ever since Mother passed away, you haven't been well. To be able to make you healthy has always been my wish. Now that we have this well water, living a long life is no longer an extravagant hope. This well water was dug out by the Zhang family and belongs to the Zhang family. Don't you think that this is a chance given to me and Xiaolong by the heavens? Also, Big Brother hasn't gotten married yet. I don't know if my future sister-in-law will be virtuous. If I move to the Zhang family and you move to the Guozhuang house, on one hand, I can serve Father and on the other, Father can enjoy the blessings of the heavens. Wouldn't it be the best of both worlds? Would it solve all the problems in my heart? Chapter 47. Mr. Lu then said, Qian, whether or not father drinks this well water, whether or not his health is good, whether or not he can live a long life are all small problems. You being able to live a peaceful and happy life is what father wants to see the most. Lu Qian said, Father, then if I can live a peaceful life and at the same time take care of you and ensure your health, then why wouldn't I do that? Moreover, marriage is a gamble. You may be able to see a person's nature with a single glance, or you may never be able to see it. You can only judge whether someone is good or bad based on their appearance. If you gamble correctly, then happiness is yours. Those so-called matching families are just people's interpretation of those successful marriages in the past. How many unhappy lives in this world are the result of matching families? Liang Shambua and Zhuangtai's beauty is only a legend. Perhaps when it comes to real life, they may not be as loving as father and mother. Although Zhang Xiaolong does not have Liang Shambua's style and elegance, he surpasses Liang Shambua in his steadiness and kindness. Those scholars in the past, I can only see their surface and it is difficult to go deeper. As for Xiaolong, I can see his nature with a single glance. I am willing to continue my fate with him. Mr. Lu was stunned hearing this and said, Qian, teaching you to read and read since you were young, I don't know if it is correct. You have read so many books that I have no words to refute you. Lu Qian smiled and said, Father, I am just feeling a little. Compared to your knowledge, I am still far from it. Mr. Lu smiled and did not speak anymore. However, Lu Qian continued, Actually, there is one thing that moves my heart in the Zhang family. It is their family's harmony and the tolerance of the elders. Marriage is not only a world for two people, but it is also a process of integration with Xiaolong's family. During the time I was in the Zhang family, I received a lot of care from the two elders, including Xiaolong's grandmother. I feel that they are very reasonable and will always think of others first. Only this kind of family can let the younger generation obtain happiness and truly live a good life. I think that I can also have the same freedom and happiness in the Zhang family as in 8 Mile Valley. Sometimes I can even feel that I may be more comfortable than in 8 Mile Valley. At this point, Mr. Lu laughed again and scolded, You little girl, you haven't even left yet and you're already talking bad about Bali Valley. No wonder people say that girls side with outsiders. Lu Qian sweetly said, Father, that's not what I meant. I'm just saying that I can get things that I can't get in 8 Mile Valley. Maybe it's because there's no mother at home. Mr. Lu was dejected and said, That's right, Qian. It's been hard on you. You didn't have a mother to dote on you since you were young. Your second aunt is also a big uncouth woman. She doesn't even care about Yaya, let alone you. This is also father's mistake. Lu Qian comforted Mr. Lu and said, Father, don't be sad. I've already grown up. Perhaps in the future, there will be someone who will dote on me. You always say that second aunt is uncouth, but Xiaolong's mother is also uncouth. However, she is especially meticulous and has a gentle personality. The difference between people is so huge. Of course, I'm not saying that second aunt is not good. Isn't second uncle's family managed by second aunt? Maybe it's because I hit it off with Xiaolong's mother. Right now, I feel like a mother. Mr. Lu nodded and said, You've always been competitive. It's rare for someone to be so subdued by you. It seems like this is also one of the reasons why you chose Zhang Xiaolong. Lu Qian blushed and nodded. Mr. Lu let out a long sigh and said, This Zhang Xiaolong was able to meet you and save you. This can be considered a heavenly opportunity. This Zhang family was able to dig out immortal water from the well. This can be considered a geographical advantage. The Zhang family and you hit it off very well. This can be considered a harmonious relationship. Lu Qian happily said, Then father, does this mean that you agree? Mr. Lu smiled and said, You've already stayed in the Zhang family for more than a month. Those who know say that you're benevolent and righteous. For those who don't know, they don't know what to say. For you to have such an ending is also very good. It's the best of both worlds. Moreover, with your personality, if I don't agree, will you imitate Cui Ying? Lu Qian charmingly smiled and said, Father, isn't that bigoted old Madame Cui? Mr. Lu said, Don't be so talkative. When I saw that you came back, I knew that you were fully prepared to persuade your father. Otherwise, you would have already hidden in the Zhang family and refused to see me. Lu Qian said. How could I, father? Didn't your daughter take the initiative to come back? The father and daughter chatted for a while. Mr. Lu said. It's already late. Quickly go and arrange dinner. Let your second aunt and you come over to help. Today, we'll have a reunion. Oh right, you should also quickly go and tell Xiaolong. I'm sure he's feeling uneasy right now. When Lu Qian heard this, she happily said, Then father, come with me. You guys can also chat and get to know each other better. Soon after, Lu Qian helped her father out of the study. The sky outside was already dark. An oil lamp had already been prepared under the eaves. Butcher Lu and the other two were still sitting and talking. There was a person sitting with his back facing them. It was Lu Qian's eldest brother, Lu Kai. Zhang Xiaolong's eyes had already swept across the study door countless times. He didn't hear what Butcher Lu and the others said. He was only worried about himself and Lu Qian. At this moment, when Lu Qian and Mr. Lu came out, he was naturally the first to see them. He subconsciously stood up. When Lu Qian saw Zhang Xiaolong stand up, she gave him a sweet smile and nodded slightly. Zhang Xiaolong knew that it was a success and he couldn't help but be overjoyed. At this time, Lu Kai also noticed the movement behind him. He quickly turned around and saw his sister whom he hadn't seen for a long time. He was naturally happy. He got up and ran over. When he was in front of her, he carefully sized her up. He couldn't help but ask Lu Qian, Qian, I haven't seen you in so long. Why do I feel that you're completely different from before? Not only have you become fairer, your eyes have also become much clearer. Your temperament has also become much more elegant. How is this caring for other people's injuries? When Lu Qian heard this, she happily looked at Mr. Lu. Mr. Lu also understood and nodded. Lu Qian said, How is that possible? Big brother, it's just that I haven't seen you in a long time. After a few days, you'll find that your sister is no different from before. Lu Kai suddenly understood and said, That makes sense. A scholar who has been away for 3 days will have a whole new level of respect. Perhaps this is the reason. Lu Qian skipped this topic and said, Big brother, how are we going to eat tonight? Lu Kai jumped up and said, I was talking to second uncle and Zhang Xiaohu just now and forgot about this matter. I'll go to second aunt's house to inform them. Lu Qian stopped him and said, Father wants us to eat at our house. It can be considered a reunion. I'll go to the village entrance to buy some things. You go to second aunt's house and see what they're cooking. Bring it together and ask them to come over and help. Lu Kai agreed and hurried off. Lu Qian wanted to go out to buy things and Zhang Xiaolong naturally wanted to go with her. However, he was stopped by Mr. Lu. He said, Xiaolong, don't go yet. Come with me to the study room. In the end, Zhang Xiaohu followed Lu Qian to the village entrance, leaving Butcher Lu to drink alone. This guy looked at the busy people and happily drank his wine. He felt that life was really colorful. Zhang Xiaolong was a bit nervous as he followed Mr. Lu into the study room. Lu Qian's eyes just now had already told him that she was satisfied with the result. This future father-in-law seemed to want to show off his power and give him some things. Although he was mentally prepared, he still felt that there was a small person in his heart that kept on pumping water. Mr. Lu entered the study room and had Zhang Xiaolong sit down. However, he did not sit down. He frowned and paced around the study room. After walking around 2 or 3 times, Mr. Lu opened his mouth and said, Xiaolong, you probably know my attitude. Zhang Xiaolong carefully said, Yes. Mr. Lu continued, Then I won't say much. Actually, I called you over because I want to say something. Zhang Xiaolong respectfully said, Please say it. This little nephew has already engraved it in his heart. Mr. Lu seemed to be very satisfied with Zhang Xiaolong's attitude. He smiled and said, Qian grew up in Bali Gully. Although our family can't be said to be rich, Qian has not suffered much since she was young. She knows very little about farm work. This is different from your family's living environment. In the future, you have to be more tolerant in this area. Zhang Xiaolong followed up and said, You don't have to worry about this. Our family's farmland is small to begin with. Xiaohua's plot of land is also on a hillside. There isn't much farm work. I can't guarantee that I won't let Qian work in the fields. However, I will definitely do the most heavy work. Qian can just do the side work. Mr. Lu said, "You're telling the truth. You didn't say anything about not letting Qian work. Actually, Qian isn't a child who can't endure hardships. It's just that she wasn't allowed to work in the fields in the past. In the future, when you two live together, you just have to take good care of her. I don't expect you to give her a good life. I just want you two to be harmonious and sweet. Also, you haven't read too many books. In terms of knowledge and experience, there is a large gap between you and Qian. This is your weakness. In the future, it will definitely have an impact on your life. I don't expect you to become a scholar or take third place. I only hope that you can recognize some words and read some good books. When you're together with Qian, you can have common topics to talk about and communicate well. In addition, although acting courageously for a just cause isn't bad, in the future, you won't be alone. Your shoulders bear the safety of your entire family. Whenever you encounter injustice, you must first consider in your heart whether or not it's within your ability to deal with it. Otherwise, if you have regrets, it will be the sorrow of your entire family." Afterwards, Mr. Lu chattered on endlessly. Zhang Xiaolong could only nod his head in agreement. Although he didn't agree with some of the points, he also knew that this future father-in-law was doing it for his own good. He couldn't refute. Just like this, one spoke and one listened. The sky gradually darkened. It felt like he couldn't see anything. Just as Mr. Lu was about to light the lamp, someone knocked on the door of the study. Chapter 48. When Mr. Lu opened the door, it was Lu Qian. Dinner was already prepared outside. Although tonight's dinner was rushed, it was still sumptuous. Most of the dishes were already prepared by Lu Yeye's family. Some of the dishes and desserts made by Lu Qian were also the icing on the cake. It made everyone who had not eaten her cooking for a long time very hungry. During the dinner, the guests and the hosts were very happy and chatted a lot. Butcher Lu and his family knew Mr. Lu's intention, and were also very happy for Lu Qian. They also said a lot of words of blessings. It was just that they were not officially engaged with the Zhang family, so they were still very reserved when they spoke. Everyone was very happy. Only Zhang Xiaohu glanced at Lu Yeye from the corner of his eyes from time to time. Unfortunately, Lu Yeye's attention was not on him, making him inevitably disappointed. After dinner, they chatted for a while. Lu Qian, who had walked for the whole afternoon, was already yawning. Therefore, Lu Kai arranged for Zhang Xiaolong and his brother to rest for the night. Butcher Lu and his family also went home to rest. Early the next morning, Zhang Xiaolong and his brother were going to bid farewell and return to the Guozhuang house. Lu Qian considered that she had not been home for a long time and wanted to stay for a few more days. Moreover, Zhang Xiaolong was going back this time to discuss the engagement with his parents. She was too shy to follow, so she did not go back with him. Mr. Lu specially instructed Zhang Xiaolong to go back and explain his feelings to Zhang Kai. He did not want him to have a knot in his heart because of his previous rejection. He also asked Zhang Xiaolong to pick an auspicious day to settle the engagement. Zhang Xiaolong naturally agreed. Therefore, under Lu Qian's reluctant gaze, the two of them went on their way. The journey here was filled with sweetness, and the journey back was filled with joy. Returning to the Guozhuang house, from afar, one could see the Zhang family standing in the small courtyard through the low walls of the Zhang family. They looked at the entrance of the village from time to time. It was estimated that except for Zhang Xiaohua, the others did not have a good rest last night. Seeing Zhang Xiaolong and Zhang Xiaohu appear in the field of vision, Zhang Xiaohua was the first to jump up and quickly ran out. She ran to Zhang Xiaolong and asked cheerfully, "Big brother, how's the situation? Where's the good news that we were all looking forward to? Why didn't Sister Qian come back? Is it?" Zhang Xiaohua didn't dare to continue asking. Before Zhang Xiaolong could open his mouth, Zhang Xiaohu snappily said, "Can't you see that big brother's face is like a peach blossom? He's so happy that he can't close his mouth. You should take the bottle in my hand first. I've been carrying it all the way." Zhang Xiaohua was happy. She didn't take the bottle in Zhang Xiaohu's hand. Instead, she turned and ran home to report to her parents. After receiving the good news, Zhang Kai and Guo Sufei were also very happy. They ran to the entrance of the courtyard to welcome their son. Zhang Xiaolong and Zhang Xiaohu were like heroes as they were escorted into the small courtyard of the Zhang family. After Zhang Xiaolong sat down on the chair, he took the water that Zhang Xiaohua handed over and drank a few mouthfuls. Then he began to talk about the situation in 8 Mile Valley. Zhang Kai and Guo Sufei listened with joy. They were secretly relieved. When Zhang Xiaolong proudly said that Mr. Lu had apologized and asked the Zhang family to pick an auspicious day for the engagement, the two of them listened with mixed feelings. They were happy that they didn't misjudge Mr. Lu. Mr. Lu was still a good friend that they could have a deep relationship with. Of course, they would be in-laws in the future. He was a good in-law that they could rest assured. They were worried that there should be betrothal gifts for the engagement. With their family situation, this was a problem. If they gave too little, their face didn't matter, but Mr. Lu's family's face would be affected. If they gave too much, they really couldn't afford it. It would add more difficulties to Zhang Xiaolong and Lu Qian's future life. However, these were all to be considered in the future. The key now was that they could celebrate a little. They had to set a date first. Guo Sufei also happily told this good news to her bedridden grandmother. Her grandmother was so happy that her face became ruddy. In the next few days, the Zhang family was immersed in joy. When spring returned to the earth, Zhang Xiaolong's spring had also arrived. Zhang Kai and Guo Sufei were busy with the engagement. Zhang Xiaolong and his brothers were busy with the spring plowing and planting in the fields. The weather was getting warmer day by day. The soil in the fields had already been frozen. The warm spring breeze blew on their faces, reminding them that spring plowing was never too early. The custom of the engagement was also very simple. The father and mother of the man would bring various gifts and prepare the man's birth characters. They would go to the woman's house. The woman would accept the gifts and give the woman's birth characters to the man. Then the engagement would be completed. Of course, the time of the marriage would be set at that time. Most of the time, they would come again to discuss the marriage in the future and set the time again. In fact, the betrothal gifts were just some gifts of various colors. However, people originally had a competitive mentality. The gifts were compared with each other. At this time, many people directly gave silver. Sometimes it was also called iridescent gold. As a matter of fact, Zhang Kai and his wife were worried about iridescent gold. Zhang Kai thought that Lu Qian was a good daughter-in-law. He should give her more iridescent gold to show that the Zhang family had a precious daughter-in-law. Moreover, Mr. Lu would also have a lot of face. Guo Sufei thought that there should be something to show, but her family's conditions were limited. It couldn't be too precious. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to live before they married her. Zhang Kai actually knew about this situation. He also thought so before, but when it came to the matter, he hesitated. After all, there were still a few hundred taels of silver banknotes hidden at home. With this possibility, of course, he wanted to do things better in his heart. When Zhang Kai talked about the banknotes, Guo Sufei also hesitated. When she talked to Lu Qian before, she also decided to use the banknotes, but she was stopped by Lu Qian. At this time, since there were banknotes, why not use it? Moreover, more than a month had passed, and no one had come to make trouble at home. Presumably, the other party really took this money as compensation. In this way, this money was her family's. Why not use it? The disagreement between the husband and wife seemed to disappear. They were both inclined to use this banknote. Therefore, Guo Sufei took out the banknotes and the token hidden at the bottom of the box. Then, she called Zhang Xiaolong into the inner room. Zhang Xiaolong's injury healed rapidly. In these few days, he didn't need to fix his arm anymore. It was just that his injured arm couldn't carry heavy objects. Zhang Xiaolong entered the inner room and asked, "Father, Mother, what's the matter?" "I'm preparing to go down to loosen the soil." Guo Sufei said lovingly, "Your arm hasn't recovered yet. It's better to do less work. Let Xiaohu and Xiaohua do more work." Zhang Xiaolong said with a smile, "I've been in bed for a long time this month. My bones feel like they're going to rust. It's really comfortable to move around now. Moreover, Xiaohua is still young and growing. How can I let her do more work?" Zhang Kai said, I know that you're full of vigor now. We don't intend to stop you, but the future is long. You have to pay more attention to your body. Zhang Xiaolong replied. I know. Father, what's the matter? It can't be as simple as letting me rest. Guo Sufei said. Oh, it's like this. Your father and I are preparing to go to Bali Go in these few days to settle the marriage between you and Qian Qian. However, our family can't come up with a good betrothal gift. We plan to take out the banknotes from last time to exchange for some. After he finished speaking, he placed the 2 banknotes and the token in front of Zhang Xiaolong. He pointed at the token and said, Take this thing with you. If something happens during the exchange, take this thing out. It might be useful. Zhang Xiaolong looked at his father and mother's eager faces and the banknotes and tokens in front of him. He sighed and didn't pick them up. He said, Father, Mother, didn't we say that we won't use these banknotes again? Zhang Kai smiled bitterly and said, Yes, that's what we said at the time. However, the situation is stronger than the person. If we don't come up with a good betrothal gift, won't Lu Qian's family lose face? Zhang Xiaolong said, Father, if we're talking about good or bad family background, there are many people in this area that are better than us. The number of people who went to the Lu family to propose marriage is even greater. How can we compare? Lu Qian was willing to marry into our family not because of our family background. The day before yesterday at the Lu family, Mr. Lu told me a lot. He is very clear about our family situation, and didn't mention anything about betrothal gifts. I think we don't have to puff ourselves up at our own cost. Guo Sufei said, Xiaolong, they didn't mention it, but that doesn't mean they don't care. It's not strange to have too many gifts. We should be prepared. Zhang Xiaolong said, No, Mother. I can't ruin the family just because I want to marry a wife. These banknotes are a disaster. We must not use them. Guo Sufei said, Your father and I have also discussed this. They haven't come to our door for so long. It should be fine. Moreover, we have this token. They may not dare to do anything to us. Zhang Xiaolong smiled bitterly and said, Mother, this token was given to us by heroine Su to protect our lives. It only says that if there are bullies who come to find trouble, we can use it to prove that she is here to protect us. Moreover, didn't heroine also say that? Don't touch these banknotes. When the bullies come to our door, we must quickly return them. If they come to our door in the future, and we don't have any banknotes to give them, what will we do? Zhang Kai and Guo Sufei were speechless. In fact, it's not that they don't know these things. They are confused because they are concerned. When it comes to matters concerning their son, it's inevitable that they will be confused. Zhang Xiaolong said again, The Lu family doesn't admire us for things like money. Moreover, don't we have something more precious than money in our family? If there is a chance in the future, we can just give it to Mr. Lu. Zhang Kai smiled bitterly and said, What is better than money in our family? How come I don't know? Zhang Xiaolong smiled mysteriously and said the following words. Chapter 49. Zhang Xiaolong smiled and said, It's our well water. When I saw Mr. Lu drinking tea that day, he was happier than if we gave him 10 taels of silver. In the future, we can give him more well water. Not only can it satisfy his appetite, but it can also ensure his health. Isn't that better? Oh right, Father, when you go this time, if you have the chance, tell Mr. Lu to move to the Guozhuang house. I saw that he had this intention last time, but he still had some misgivings. This time Lu Qian came, so I think he would be willing to come. This way, Lu Qian and I can also take care of him. What do you think? Zhang Kai and Guo Sufei looked at each other and said, When I go, I will definitely say these words. How about this, you keep these banknotes and tokens first. If you really need them, you can exchange them. Zhang Xiaolong thought about it and said, Okay, then I'll keep them first. After he finished speaking, he put the banknotes and tokens into his pocket. Since Zhang Xiaolong didn't agree to use banknotes, the Zhang family's betrothal gifts were much simpler. They just prepared a few simple gifts, according to the local customs. Early in the morning, Zhang Kai and Guo Sufei put on new clothes and took the prepared gifts. They set off to Bali Go to prepare for the most important engagement in Zhang Xiaolong's life. When Zhang Kai and Guosufei arrived at Mr. Lu's house, they received a very grand welcome. When they presented the simple betrothal gifts, Mr. Lu didn't care and respectfully accepted them. He didn't look down on them or turn hostile because of the simplicity of the gifts. This made Zhang Kai and his wife feel relieved. There was no one else in the Lu family's hall, only Butcher Lu and other family members. It seemed that Mr. Lu really wasn't the kind of person who liked to be extravagant and formal. There was no sign of Lu Qian in the hall. The whole process of the engagement was simple. Everything was carried out according to the customs of the countryside. Nothing was overdone. When the ceremony came to an end smoothly, it was time for the two parties to discuss the wedding. Zhang Kai and Guosufei asked Mr. Lu to make the decision. They only had one request, which was to get married as soon as possible. Because their grandmother's health couldn't wait too long, her last wish was to see her grandson's wedding. Mr. Lu pondered for a long time. He took out the almanac and carefully examined it. His brows were slightly furrowed. Zhang Kai and the others couldn't help but feel anxious. After a while, Mr. Lu raised his head and said, "Look at this date. Recently, the end of this month has been an auspicious day. After that, it will be June. Isn't the end of this month too rushed?" At the end of June, the old lady. Mr. Lu did not finish his sentence. As expected, Zhang Kai and Guosufei also frowned. Guosufei did not give up and asked, "Are there no good days in between?" Mr. Lu said, "There are many good days in between, but there aren't any that match Xiaolong and Qianqian's birth characters." Zhang Kai let out a long breath and said, "Ai, then there's only June. There are only a few days until the end of the month. There's no sign of the house for the wedding. It's just a few days, how can we prepare it?" Mr. Lu also nodded and said, "That's the only thing we can do. But what about the old lady?" At this time, a voice came from outside. "Father, I think it's better to set it at the end of this month." Everyone looked, and saw that the person who came in was Lu Qian. It turned out that she had been listening outside the entire time. Lu Qian's face was a bit red as she said, "Uncle Auntie, seeing Xiaolong's wedding is grandmother's last wish. As the younger generation, we should satisfy her. Actually, the simplicity of the wedding is also up to us. There's no need for overly complicated ceremonies. It's also not realistic for us to hold a grand wedding. I think you don't need to buy a new house for the time being. Let's just find a place first. Moreover, Father, aren't you also planning to move to the Guozhuang house? Take this opportunity and find a place next to the Zhang family's courtyard. Build a few houses and surround it with a courtyard wall. Wouldn't that be a home? When this courtyard is ready, you can move there. Xiaolong and I will also move there. We can take care of you on one hand, and we can also take care of Uncle and the others on the other. What do you think?" Lu Qian's idea seemed very unimaginable, but after careful consideration, it was still very feasible. Grandmother's health should not last until June. When the old lady passed away, this morning's ceremony was likely to delay the wedding. The old lady was eager to see her grandson's wedding, so this wedding should be held at the end of February. With the Zhang family's family background, it was not realistic to hold a large-scale wedding. It was also very easy to prepare a simple wedding. It was not a big problem to ask for help from familiar people in the village for a few days. The most difficult problem was the new house. It was supposed to be a new house for the newly married couple. If they started preparing now, it was estimated that it could be done in a month. If Mr. Lu also wanted to move over, then he had to build a small courtyard again. This would take a few months. Lu Qian also wanted to take care of her father. Of course, this courtyard had to be built, so it was better to put it together. However, what Zhang Kai was thinking now was that Lu Qian wanted to separate from Xiaolong before she married into the family. She wanted to live with her father. It seemed that she wanted to separate from the family. Could it be that she had other thoughts? However, after that, Zhang Kai denied this idea. What did his family have that Lu Qian coveted? It was nothing more than that. Well, Lu Qian persuaded her father to go there, because she wanted to consider her father's health. This was filial piety. Xiaolong and Lu Qian would live alone. To be honest, it was a matter of time. There were 3 sons in the family. How could they not separate from the family? It seemed too early to mention it at this time, but after thinking about it carefully, it was still appropriate. At least, it would let others see Lu Qian's vision. It would not let Zhang Xiaohu and Zhang Xiaohua have a knot in their hearts. Mr. Lu naturally had no opinion in his heart. He was originally thinking about how to retire. He was a teacher and was respected everywhere. He heard that there was no teacher in the Guozhuang house. He would definitely be popular if he went there. Moreover, there was a daughter to rely on there. He could also protect his daughter. Why not? He was still thinking about how to bring up the matter of moving to Zhangkai. His daughter brought it up at this time. It was really timely. There were people who objected. That was Butcher Lu's family. Butcher Lu raised his voice and said, "Big brother, why do you want to go to the Guozhuang house? You didn't even discuss it with me. The two of us grew up in Bali Valley." Mr. Lu said gently, "Second brother, I'm also thinking about it. Qianqian is going to marry into the Guozhuang house far away. She is unfamiliar with the place and there is no one to take care of her. Lu Kai and I are at home alone. There is no woman to take care of us." Lu Yeye interrupted and said, "Uncle, don't you still have me? Haven't I been helping at home all this time?" Mr. Lu said with a smile, "Yeye, I know that you are working hard at Uncle's house. But after all, it is not a long-term solution. Look at your sister's engagement. She is about to get married. Are you still far away? Even if you find a husband in Bali Valley, you can't come over every day to look after the house for Uncle. Moreover, Lu Kai also needs to find a wife to live with. This house should be given to him quickly. If I don't force him, who knows when he will find a wife?" Lu Kai said with a red face, "Father, look at what you are saying. I haven't found a suitable one yet." Mr. Lu glanced at him and said, "Then you should look for a good one for me. Strive to settle the matter with your sister this year. We will have a double happiness." Lu Kai did not say anything. Then Mr. Lu said to Butcher Lu, "Second brother, although this Guo Manor is far, it's actually only half a day's journey. Even if I move there, it'll still be very convenient for me to move around in the future. Moreover, that business of yours as a butcher has nothing to do with my teaching. You and I have a brotherly relationship, so we can just move around every 10 days to half a month. We definitely won't drift apart because of time. In the future, when you are tired of staying in Bali Valley, you can also move in with me." Mr. Lu knew that Butcher Lu was outspoken and could not keep secrets in his heart. Therefore, he did not mention a word about the well water. Of course, if the water was really effective in the future, Mr. Lu would definitely bring Butcher Lu and the others over. Mr. Lu saw that no one had any objections, so he set the date with Zhang Kai. It was the day at the end of February. Then he discussed the details with Zhang Kai. Lu Qian did not listen in and left. Lu Yeye also followed her out. When they arrived at Lu Qian's boudoir, Lu Yeye teased, "Elder sister, do you think that Xiaolong is in such a hurry to marry over?" Lu Qian said, "It is not what you think. This Zhang family's grandmother does not have many days left. The last time I was at his house, she was already coughing up blood. The old woman has worked hard all her life. I think we should still fulfill her last wish. Moreover, you also know his family's situation. Doing things in such a hurry is actually a kind of relief. It does not give me and Xiaolong too much of a burden. My decision is beneficial to both him and me." Lu Yeye said, "The last time you told me, I also thought about it for a long time. This fate is really strange. You have known each other for less than 2 months, and you are going to eat at the same stove. Now that I think about it, it is really magical." Lu Qian smiled and said, "You can do it too. I saw that these few times when Zhang Xiaohu saw you, his eyes could not leave you. I think he also wants to eat at the same stove as you." Lu Yeye blushed and said, "Elder sister, don't tease me. Last time at the Zhang family, I also told you that I don't have any feelings for this Zhang Xiaohu. Although he did save me, I am only grateful. In your words, there is no fate between us. Moreover, a few days ago, Mr. Zhao from Shuezhuang sent someone over to propose marriage to his second son, Zhao Yuzhao. I have seen Zhao Yuzhao before. He is also a scholar with a decent appearance. It is only because he has been busy with your matters that father has not agreed for the time being. Once your matters are settled, I estimate that the marriage will be set." When Lu Qian heard this, she was very happy and said, "You little girl, you are still hiding this secret in your heart. You only told me today. I have seen this Zhao Yuzhao before. His appearance and knowledge are really good. He is very suitable for you. Yeah, your luck is not bad." Chapter 50. Lu Yeye giggled and said, "No matter how good your luck is, it can't be compared to your fate. That was given by the heavens. You just wait to slowly enjoy your happiness. I just want to persist in my dream. I want him to read me poems that I like and write my own poems. When I'm free, I'll look at the small bridge and the flowing water. When night comes, I'll give him incense." Lu Qian said, Yeah, in fact, love is sweet. Life is realistic. I have the same dream as you. Unfortunately, the heavens have arranged Zhang Xiaolong for me. I can only choose my village wife's life. Different people have different ways of living. I hope that we will have our own happy life. Lu Yeye said, "Sister, I also believe that we will be happy. However, elder sister, have you really decided? I still want to ask you one last time. Have you really decided to marry an illiterate farmer in such a hurry? Decades later, when you look back, won't you regret today's decision?" When Lu Qian heard this, she tugged at Lu Yeye and said, Yeah, there are some things that cannot be decided by reason. Even though there are millions of people who will continue to move forward, perhaps today's decision will lead to a different life for me. Perhaps in a few decades, I will regret today's decision. However, right now, I do not regret it. When you are afraid of the slightest thing and do not know when to advance or retreat, you have lost the right to choose. Life is the combination of many choices. Different choices are different lives. If you and I both make the same choice, then wouldn't there be no joy in life? Although Xiaolong is a farmer, he is not illiterate. He is not a rotten wood that can't be carved. I think that our lives are a process of mutual influence and change. He may not write poems for me, but I can read for him and teach him how to write. We don't have a small bridge and flowing water. Maybe we can have a man plowing and a woman weaving. Although I can't give him incense, how can the bedroom be just drawing eyebrows? I can let him grind ink for me. In short, we will gradually change and make our lives happier." Lu Yeye also smiled and said, "Elder sister, your homework was better than mine when you were young, and you read more books than me when you grew up. I can't win against you, but I always feel that you will suffer a lot if you marry into the Zhang family. Why do you want to make yourself uncomfortable?" However, Lu Qian said, You are still a little stubborn. The word happiness is the same for everyone. The happiness of the poor is no different from the happiness of the rich. It doesn't mean that your happiness is better than others just because you are rich. So, when I choose to be poor or rich, I am choosing happiness. There was happiness in suffering, and there was happiness in enjoying. As long as one felt happy, why would one be afraid of suffering? Even if it is pain in the eyes of others, how can you know the sweetness in it? As the saying goes, if you are not a fish, how can you know the happiness of the fish? There is only so much happiness in this world. The more happiness you have, the less happiness others will have. If you feel unhappy every day, then others will have more happiness every day. Instead of sharing your happiness with others, why don't you live happily every day? Lu Yeye listened and frowned. She understood something in her heart, but she immediately let go and said, Elder sister, I am here to persuade you, but what you said made me think differently. However, even if you are right, I do not have the slightest interest in that Zhang Xiaohu. Lu Qian said, You little girl, I am just telling you my own thoughts. I am not prepared to be a matchmaker. Not to mention the two sisters quarreling in the room. The two prospective in-laws in the hall had already discussed the specific details. At this time, it was already late. If they rushed back to Guozhuang, they would have to travel at night. Naturally, Mr. Lu would not let them leave like this. Dinner was eaten at Mr. Lu's house. After the engagement, they were now considered a family. This meal was naturally eaten to their heart's content, and both the host and the guests were happy. Early the next morning, when the sky was still hazy, Zhang Kai and Guo Sufei said goodbye to Mr. Lu and hurried back to the Guozhuang house. There were only a few days until the end of the month. They still had to hurry back to prepare for the wedding. The task was very difficult. When the two elders rushed back to the Guozhuang house and told Zhang Xiaohu the good news, Zhang Xiaohua and Zhang Xiaohua, who were waiting at the side, were so happy that they almost jumped up. Their impression of this future sister-in-law was really good. They did not expect that they would be able to see this sister-in-law in a few days. It was really unexpected. When Grandma heard Lu Qian set the date a few days later, she kept nagging, "Good child, good daughter-in-law." If there was a memorial tablet, she would have burned a few sticks of incense to thank the ancestors for finding such a good granddaughter-in-law. Zhang Kai and Guo Sufei's family had a very good reputation in the Guozhuang house. Moreover, there had never been any big events in the family. This time, for their eldest son to marry a daughter-in-law, the villagers naturally did their best to help. Many people had also seen Lu Qian. Although the Zhang family did not admit the relationship between Lu Qian and the Zhang family before, everyone had a lot of gossip behind their backs. This time, they could marry Lu Qian legitimately, which was also something that everyone expected. However, they did not expect that the time would be so short. Some people even thought in the wrong direction. But when the people with good intentions mentioned Grandma, they immediately understood and could not help but give Lu Qian a thumbs up. When the villagers came to congratulate them, they would receive them in the big shed. The new house needed to be prepared. For the time being, they would use the house where the three brothers lived. Zhang Xiaohu was forced to squeeze together with Zhang Xiaohua on the Kong bed. The house in the small courtyard also needed to be slightly repaired. Fortunately, the firewood was good. With the help of the villagers, everything was completed within the scheduled time. On the day of the wedding, the entire small courtyard of the Zhang family was filled with a jubilant atmosphere. Before dawn, the small courtyard of the Zhang family was filled with a hubbub of voices. Many people came and busied themselves with their own things. Some of the women in the village came to help tidy up the tables and chairs, and helped to clean up the vegetables. The chef also started a fire, and began to prepare the meal. Zhang Xiaolong was also woken up early. After tidying up, he prepared to ride a big horse, bring the bridal sedan chair, and the band to Bali Gully to marry Lu Qian. The route of the wedding was naturally not the small path that they usually took. It took longer than usual. Moreover, they had to rush back before noon. Of course, they had to set off through the stars and the moon. When everyone was ready to set off, Guo Sufei found that the best man, Zhang Xiaohua, was missing. She hurriedly asked Zhang Xiaohu. He also felt very strange. In the middle of the night, he heard someone in the courtyard and got up early to help. When he got up, he also called Zhang Xiaohua. It seemed that he did not get up. Zhang Xiaohu hurriedly went back to the room to take a look. Sure enough, Zhang Xiaohua was still sleeping soundly on the Kong. No matter how Zhang Xiaohu called, he did not wake up. In the end, Zhang Xiaohu ruthlessly poured water on him. He even turned over and went back to sleep, leaving everyone at a loss. However, the matter of the best man had been handed over to him yesterday. They could not find anyone else temporarily. Fortunately, there was a sedan chair. Moreover, grandmother also knew that Zhang Xiaohua slept until the sun came out. Everyone carried Zhang Xiaohua into the sedan chair and let him sleep. Now her sister-in-law had not even sat in the sedan chair, but her brother slept first. In this way, the wedding procession carried Zhang Xiaohua sleeping in the sedan chair to Baligo in the dark. When the procession had traveled more than half the distance, the sky was like a fish belly. When the sun peeked out from the horizon, that ray of sunlight swept over the sedan chair. Only then did Zhang Xiaohua open his eyes. Rubbing his eyes, he found that he was sleeping in an unfamiliar environment. Surprised, he lifted the curtain of the sedan chair. Only then did he realize that he was sleeping in an unfamiliar environment. He stopped the sedan chair, and Zhang Xiaohua came down from the sedan chair. He ran in front of Zhang Xiaolong's horse and hurriedly apologized to his elder brother. Zhang Xiaolong pulled him to ride on the horse and hugged him, saying, "Xiaohua, it's okay. You were sleeping to grow. You didn't delay anything, so why are you apologizing? However, this time I really opened my eyes. How come I didn't know that you could sleep so much that you couldn't even wake up with water?" Zhang Xiaohua blushed and said embarrassedly, "I don't know. Maybe I used to sleep like this before, but I never got up so early. Zhang Xiaolong thought about it and felt that it was true. He and his younger brother had always slept together. In the past, he didn't find anything unusual. Moreover, he never got up so early. Maybe Xiaohua had always been sleeping like this. Anyway, there was nothing wrong with him. He didn't need to get up so early in the future, so he didn't ask anymore. The rest of the journey was not far. With the two brothers chatting in Zhang Xiaolong's excited mood, they quickly finished the journey. The village entrance of Ba Ligo could be seen from afar. Only then did Zhang Xiaolong stop the horse and let the wedding procession rest for a while. Then a special master arranged for people to set off the firecrackers and let the band play music. Zhang Xiaohua also quickly and obediently jumped down from the horse. She took the horse's reins from her elder brother's hand and walked to the front. She led the horse forward slowly. The people of the Lu family were naturally waiting at the village entrance early. When they saw the wedding procession, someone hurried back to report to Mr. Lu. The wedding band also broke the silence of the early morning. The villagers of Ba Ligo were all awakened by this festive sound early in the morning. Before the wedding procession entered the village, many children and villagers stopped them and asked for candy and other things. The Zhang family was naturally prepared. Someone took out the prepared things and scattered them to the crowd. Everyone picked up the candy and dispersed in a hubbub. They let the wedding procession move forward. In the short distance from the village entrance to the Lu family, the wedding procession was stopped several times. However, everyone was very happy and didn't get angry because of this. It was the custom of the countryside. When a family had a happy occasion, everyone wanted to share the joy. The more joy they shared, the bigger the family's happy occasion. The wedding procession couldn't wait to be stopped as much as possible. Chapter 51. When the wedding procession arrived at the Lu family's gate, the sky was already bright. There were already many people waiting at the gate. Zhang Xiaohua led the horse to the front of the crowd before stopping. When Zhang Xiaolong got off the horse, Zhang Xiaohua handed the horse's reins to the Lu family members who came over. Everyone cupped their hands to Zhang Xiaolong and said, "Groom, congratulations, congratulations." Zhang Xiaolong also happily returned everyone's greeting. Then everyone opened up a path. Zhang Xiaohua looked up and saw a wooden shelf next to the gate. On the shelf, there was a bow. This was the custom of the countryside. The first thing the groom did when he got married was to shoot 3 arrows into the sky at the bride's gate. It meant to drive away all the evil spirits. In the past, when other people were getting married, they had seen this before. However, although Zhang Xiaolong's arm injury was healed, the work in the field was still a problem. How could he draw the bow and shoot arrows? It seemed that this matter could only be done by the best man, Zhang Xiaohua. However, Zhang Xiaohua was only a 12 or 13-year-old child. Letting him draw the bow was too far-fetched. Everyone looked at each other. Zhang Xiaolong thought about it and walked forward, preparing to take the bow. Zhang Xiaohua was anxious. She quickly rushed forward and pulled her brother, saying, "Big brother, your arm just healed. How can you pull this thing? If there is any injury, wouldn't all the previous efforts be wasted? Let me do it." Zhang Xiaolong smiled and said, "It's okay. It's just drawing the bow and shooting. I still have the strength. You're still young. How can you draw the bow and shoot arrows?" Zhang Xiaohua also smiled and said, "Big brother, you're looking down on me. I can work in the field myself. How can I not have the strength? Let me try. If I can't do it, you can do it. We won't lose face, don't you think?" Zhang Xiaolong thought about it and agreed. Anyway, the best man did things for the groom during the wedding. If Xiaohua really couldn't draw the bow, then he could only do it himself. Mr. Lu probably knew that his arm wasn't good enough. The bow on the shelf should be a soft bow that didn't need too much strength to draw. Zhang Xiaohua walked to the shelf and took the big bow from the shelf that was as tall as him. He felt that it was very heavy. He had never used a bow before, so he thought that all bows were very heavy, so he didn't care. Then he picked up an arrow without an arrowhead from the shelf and put it on the bow. He turned around and asked Zhang Xiaolong, "Big brother, where should I shoot?" Zhang Xiaolong pointed to the sky outside the village and said, "Over there." Zhang Xiaohua agreed and imitated the way he used to look at people. He got into a horse stance and then faced the sky and pulled the bowstring with all his strength. However, the bowstring was very tight. Zhang Xiaohua pulled it about 30% full, and he couldn't pull it anymore. He couldn't help but blush. Normally, he should release his hand and shoot the arrow. But this was his first time shooting an arrow. Moreover, he used to see others pull the bowstring like a full moon, so he thought that it must be completely pulled. So he took a deep breath and moved his 2 arms. Sure enough, he felt a force coming from his arms. He shouted and the bow was immediately pulled into a full moon shape. He confidently looked at the morning glow outside the village and released the tight bowstring. The arrow flew out like a meteor with a so sound. Looking at the arrow flying far away, Zhang Xiaohua felt a sense of joy in his heart. Zhang Xiaohua used the same method for the remaining 2 arrows and shot them far away from 8 Mile Gorge. After the 3 arrows were shot, Zhang Xiaohua felt that his arms were sore and numb. He couldn't lift the bow and couldn't put it back on the shelf. At this time, everyone was applauding and praising Zhang Xiaohua's strength. Only Zhang Xiaolong saw the abnormality. He quickly walked in front of Zhang Xiaohua and took the bow. He was about to put it back on the shelf, but unexpectedly, his hand felt heavy. He quickly exerted some strength and caught it. Zhang Xiaolong was very surprised in his heart. Why is this flexible bow so heavy? However, at this time, everyone had already surrounded him. He didn't have time to think carefully and just put the bow on the shelf. He was surrounded by people and walked into the Lu family's courtyard, leaving the bow alone on the shelf. Just as Zhang Xiaolong was being crowded into the Lu family's courtyard, Hunter Zhang at the north end of 8 Mile Gorge was packing up and preparing to go hunting in the mountains. He walked into the small house where he kept the bow and arrows. Not long after, he came out in a flustered and exasperated manner and asked his wife, "Boy's mother, where did the bow on the shelf go?" His wife asked curiously, "Which bow? How would I know? I've never entered that small house." Hunter Zhang was anxious and said, "It's the 5 pickle bow that was passed down from my ancestors. It was on the top of the shelf on the right. I saw it the day before yesterday, but it's gone today. Could it be that there was a thief at home yesterday?" His wife was preparing breakfast on the stove when she suddenly remembered something and hurriedly ran out, saying, "I remember now. Boy's father, Teacher Lu, sent someone to borrow a flexible bow yesterday. It must be for his son-in-law today. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to draw it, so he specifically asked for it. At that time, I was packing the child's clothes, so I asked someone to get it himself. I remember you said that there was one on the shelf that you made for fun, so I told him." Hunter Zhang asked, "Did you see it when he took it out?" His wife said shamefully, "He did tell me, but wasn't it just a toy that you made blindly? I was too lazy to look at it, so I let him take it away." Hunter Zhang immediately scolded, "You prodigal woman, you didn't even take a good look at what you borrowed. He took away our ancestral bow, and you were too lazy to look at it. Moreover, Teacher Lu has always been very good to us. All the children in our village were taught by him. There must be a reason why he specially came to borrow a flexible bow. Look at you now. You gave him a bow that no one has been able to draw for more than 10 years. Aren't you purposely making him lose face? I'll see how I'll deal with you when I come back." After saying that, Hunter Zhang hurriedly ran out in a panic. When he ran to the Lu family's main gate, Zhang Xiaolong and the others had already entered the courtyard. The strong bow that had been passed down from his ancestors was placed on the shelf at the entrance. In his opinion, it must have been thrown there because no one had been able to draw it. At this moment, he just happened to see someone poking his head out from the Lu family's main gate. He said thoughtfully, "Lu-san, or tell Teacher Lu that I'm taking this bow and arrow." The person inside responded, "Okay, got it." Hunter Zhang hurriedly took the bow and hugged it to his chest like it was a treasure. He hurriedly left with a guilty look on his face, afraid that someone would stop him and scold him for using a bow that no one had been able to draw. With his mind preoccupied, he did not notice that the 3 arrows without arrowheads that should have been placed on the shelf had all disappeared. At this moment, Zhang Xiaolong, accompanied by Zhang Xiaohua, had already walked to the door of Lu Qian's boudoir. According to the village's rules, If the groom wanted the bride to open the door, he must answer the bride's question. Only when the answer was satisfactory could the groom open the door. In fact, most of the people who asked questions were the bridesmaids and the others. The bride would not make things difficult for her future husband. Zhang Xiaolong was also facing the same problem now. Mr. Lu had always treated people with poetry and literature. Most of the people in this courtyard were also scholars. There was not a single person who knew martial arts. Otherwise, Zhang Xiaohua's shocking 3 arrows would not have gone unnoticed. Although Mr. Lu had told his friends and students in advance that his son-in-law came from a peasant background, and they should not make things too difficult for him, to be honest, Mr. Lu's smart and virtuous daughter had more than 1 or 2 people in mind. Today, she was actually married by someone who was not in her circle. There were a few guests who felt indignant in their hearts. However, of course, they could not be very obvious in front of Mr. Lu. There were a few nosy people who were thinking about how to make things difficult for Zhang Xiaolong on the bride's issue. Lu Yeye was of course Lu Qian's bridesmaid. This girl had always been a person who was not afraid of trouble. Moreover, she never thought before doing things. Thus, her first question was, let Zhang Xiaolong write a few words to show off his calligraphy. When this question came out, Lu Qian, who was in the boudoir, glared at Lu Yeye and asked, whose idea was this? Why didn't you tell me? Lu Yeye said in a sweet voice, sister, it was a group of people outside who said it. It's okay to make brother-in-law lose face now. It's also good to urge him to learn calligraphy properly in the future. What do you think? Lu Qian smiled bitterly in her heart. What can I say? Your question has already come out. Can I take it back? Sigh, I just don't know if Xiaolong will blame me in the future. Mr. Lu's face in the hall was also a bit ugly. This was obviously making things difficult for his son-in-law. However, marriage was about liveliness. No matter how much nonsense they made, they could not be blamed. It was better to see how Zhang Xiaolong would deal with it. If he really could not do it, he would just write something. It was not a big deal. After all, it was not a big deal anyway. Zhang Xiaolong and his brother's faces were also very strange. What they were afraid of came true. Zhang Xiaolong sighed in his heart. He walked forward and prepared to write a few words to deal with it. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua once again pulled her elder brother's arm and said, don't be impatient, elder brother. Let me try. Can you do it? Zhang Xiaolong was a bit doubtful. Zhang Xiaohua patted his hand and said, it's still the same words. If I can't do it, you try again. Zhang Xiaohua walked forward and said to everyone, it's still the same old words. My elder brother's arm injury has not healed yet. Let me write this for him. After he finished speaking, he walked in front of the prepared ink and paper. He lowered his head and pondered for a moment. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. He raised his head and said, everyone, for today's liveliness, we will not use this ink and paper. Everyone asked curiously, then what should we use? Zhang Xiaohua asked, is there a ready-made mop? Today, I will use the mop to write a few big words for everyone. Mop. How do you write it? Someone asked curiously. While they were talking, someone had already brought the mop over. Zhang Xiaohua found a basin and poured the ground ink into it. She then placed the mop into the basin and dipped it in. She held the mop with both hands and carefully pondered in her heart. She picked up the mop and wrote 2 big words on the limestone slab in Mr. Lu's courtyard. Misty. These 2 words were written in an ancient style. It was very elegant and full of charm. Zhang Xiaohua wrote it in one go, causing the surrounding people to be stunned. In the hall, Mr. Lu heard the commotion outside and suddenly came out of the hall. When he saw the 2 words on the limestone slab, he did not say anything. He carefully thought about it, and was also stunned. Speaking of Misty, these 2 words were originally the words on the token. That day, after Zhang Xiaohua asked someone to recognize it, she had simulated, tasted and practiced more than once how to write it. Other words such as Zhang Xiaohua, he would not be able to write it no matter what. However, these 2 words had already been deeply engraved into her heart. Naturally, she could write it at her fingertips. Of course, because she did not have the ability to enter the school, She would definitely be ridiculed if she wrote with a brush. But using a mop to write, she naturally did not have to worry about things like technique. Please add it to your collection, thank you. Chapter 52. The word misty was written in an ancient style, full of elegance and charm. Zhang Xiaohua wrote it in one go, making the surrounding crowd stunned. Mr. Lu, who was in the hall, heard the clamor outside, and suddenly became abnormally quiet. He also came out of the hall, and when he saw the two words on the bluestone board, he didn't say anything. He tasted it carefully and was actually stunned. Speaking of the word misty, it was originally the word on the token. That day, after Zhang Xiaohua asked someone to recognize it, he had simulated, tasted, and practiced how to write it more than once in his heart. Other words like Zhang Xiaohua and Zhang Xiaolong were words that he couldn't write no matter how hard he tried. However, these two words had been deeply engraved in his heart, so naturally he could write it at his fingertips. Of course, based on his standard that hadn't entered the school, writing with a brush would definitely be ridiculed by others. Using a mop to write, he naturally didn't have to care about techniques and such. Suddenly writing it was really shocking. Of course, there were also people who didn't know the value of the word. That butcher Lu was the first to speak. Why aren't you saying anything? Is it good or bad? Say something? These words immediately woke everyone up. Everyone clapped their hands and praised together. Good words, good words. The meaning is casual, the ancient charm is long, rare, rare, rare. A few people who had ulterior motives couldn't help but praise. They muttered in their hearts, "This Mr. Lu, the younger brother's standard is already so amazing, not to mention the older brother. He even said that he was from a bumpkin background. Isn't he too low-key? If this standard is considered a bumpkin, then what is our standard?" Mr. Lu's gaze also moved from the bluestone board to Zhang Xiaohua. He naturally knew of Zhang Xiaolong's standard, but this Zhang Xiaohua at such a young age actually had such standard. He really hit it deeply. He had treated him as a child before, but it seemed like he had eyes but didn't recognize Mount Tai. He had to dig more in the future. Actually, Zhang Xiaolong was also very surprised, but now wasn't the time to be surprised. He still had to face the bridesmaid's second question. Sure enough, the second question was still a literary question. Compose a poem. Zhang Xiaolong, Zhang Xiaohua, Lu Qian, and Mr. Lu broke out in cold sweat. Who was so shameless? Lu Yeye was also very innocent. She said with her big eyes, "It's all the revenge of those disappointed people. Sister, if you want to blame someone, blame your charm." Zhang Xiaohua wanted to step forward again, but she was stopped by Zhang Xiaolong who said, "Xiaohua, look at big brother this time." Zhang Xiaolong lowered his head and pondered, pacing back and forth. Not long after, he raised his head and said to the crowd, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just a man who grows crops in the fields. I can't be compared to all of you. However, I've always believed that everyone in this world has their own role to play in survival. Scholars have their own uses, farmers have their own uses, no one can be missing. Today I'll pretend to be cultured, and reluctantly compose a poem." After saying that, he raised his voice and said, "I was originally a banished immortal in the heavens, wandering in the mortal world for decades. I was just waiting for the opportunity to meet the hidden dragon and soar into the heavens." This time, the crowd was stunned again. Logically speaking, this poem did not rhyme at all, and the word count was also wrong. However, the concept contained within was very distant, and the momentum was boundless. The crowd did not know how to evaluate it. At this time Mr. Lu interjected and said, "Nephew, this poem's concept is very good. The momentum is overwhelming. I hope nephew will study hard in the future and reach a higher level." When everyone heard this, they could not help but say, "Mr. Lu, you're still calling him nephew. Shouldn't you change your way of addressing him?" The crowd was in an uproar, and everyone said their own words. This second question was passed. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua gave Zhang Xiaolong a thumbs up. Zhang Xiaolong smiled and used his hand to wipe his forehead. It seemed that he was already sweating. When Zhang Xiaolong once again walked to Lu Qian's boudoir, the third question appeared. If the bride was compared to an object, what would you want it to be? This question was very tricky. Everyone's answer would be different, and no matter how they answered, it could be said to be a very good answer. It was also this kind of question that looked easy, but on the contrary, it was not easy to answer. Many people in the crowd were thinking in their hearts, if they were to answer this question themselves, what would they say? However, this question seemed to be too simple for Zhang Xiaolong. He did not even think and immediately answered. I hope that Qian is a mirror given to me by the heavens. When I make a mistake, she can remind me and correct me. I hope that Qian is a lotus flower given to me by the heavens. We can be harmonious, respect, and love each other forever. I hope that Qian is a crutch given to me by the heavens. When we are both old, we can support each other and grow old together. Zhang Xiaolong's answer was so simple and straight to the heart. Everyone could not help but sigh in their hearts. Lu Qian indeed had a unique insight and found her true love. Originally, there were some people who were dissatisfied, but at this moment, they also felt Zhang Xiaolong's sincerity towards Lu Qian. They could not help but applaud and cheer. Lu Yeye, who was listening in the room, also had stars in her eyes. She smiled and said to Lu Qian, whose face was red and her eyes were sparkling, "Sister, other people are all sour scholars. This future brother-in-law has not studied for a few days. How can he be so sour? Could it be that sister's few days in the Zhang family can make this Zhang Xiaolong so sour? What kind of distance is that?" Lu Qian scolded. "You're thinking too much." Lu Qian scolded with a smile. "You little girl, you're always thinking in the wrong direction. I didn't think that this little dragon would have such literary talent and accomplishment. I didn't teach him these. I only thought that he had the potential in this area. It seems that I didn't misjudge him. Hee, Yeye, why aren't you opening the door?" After that, she put the red veil on her head. Lu Yeye said, "Yes, bride." After that, she opened the door wide. The people outside the room saw the door open and knew that the bride's side had passed. Naturally, there was a burst of cheers. Then Zhang Xiaolong entered the room. Under the accompaniment of the bridesmaid Lu Yeye, he carefully brought Lu Qian out. They walked into the Lu family's hall together. In the hall, Mr. Lu was already sitting there. Zhang Xiaolong and Lu Qian walked in front of Mr. Lu and knelt down together to kowtow 3 times to the old man. After they finished, Mr. Lu quickly stood up and helped them up. At this time, Lu Qian was already sobbing. She felt the pain of leaving home. It was also because she had gone to other places in the past. In the end, she had to return to her home. No matter where she was, she always had this root in her heart. From today onwards, this was no longer her home. She did not need to think about coming back. She inevitably felt a sense of loss in her heart. Thinking about the place where she grew up and thinking about her mother not being able to see this scene, how could she still control her feelings? Mr. Lu walked in front of Zhang Xiaolong. Zhang Xiaolong quickly called him father-in-law. Mr. Lu looked at Zhang Xiaolong's eyes and put Lu Qian's hand in his hand. He said, "Xiaolong, I'll leave Qian to you. You must remember what you said to me before. Treat her well, and don't let her down." Zhang Xiaolong took Lu Qian's hand and said seriously, "Father-in-law, I treat Qian sincerely. In the future, you can look at me. I will definitely not let you down." Then Mr. Lu walked in front of Lu Qian and took her hand. He said, "Qian, in the future, you are a member of the Zhang family. You must serve your in-laws well and live a good life with Xiaolong. I don't want to say anything else. I just hope that you can grow old together and live a happy life." Lu Qian cried and said, "I know, father. We will do it." Then Mr. Lu said, "Okay, you should go back quickly. They must still be waiting." After saying this, Zhang Xiaolong took Lu Qian's hand and sent Lu Qian to the bridal sedan that had been waiting for a long time at the door. Then he got on the horse and let Zhang Xiaohua lead the horse. Lu Yeye accompanied by the bridal sedan. She led the bridal sedan and walked slowly from the Lu family's gate to the village entrance. Mr. Lu watched from afar as the wedding crowd walked further and further away. He couldn't help but cry. The daughter that he had raised for such a long time was going to be married off in the blink of an eye. Even if she would live with him soon, she would not be the same person at that time. At that time, She would first be the daughter-in-law of the Zhang family. Thinking of this, Mr. Lu couldn't help but think of his deceased wife. It was a pity that she passed away early and couldn't see the scene of his daughter getting married. At this time Lu Kai also came over. He supported his father and comforted him. Father, Xiaolong is a very good child. The people of the Zhang family are also very reasonable. Sister won't suffer any grievances when she marries over. Moreover, aren't you moving over to live with them soon? If there is anything, you will be the first to know. It's not much different from sister living at home with you now. Mr. Lu sighed and nodded. Then he shook his head and turned back to the house. Zhang Xiaolong and the others took the bridal sedan out of the village entrance of Balagu. Looking at the sky, it was already late in the morning. He said to Zhang Xiaohua and Lu Yeye, "Looking at the time, it's already late. We have to hurry. Xiaohua, you ride with me. Yeye, you also sit in the sedan. It's only right for the bridesmaid to sit in the sedan." The two also followed Zhang Xiaolong's arrangement. One rode a horse and the other sat in the sedan. Only then did the wedding procession speed up and prepare to reach the Guozhuang house before noon. When Zhang Xiaolong and Zhang Xiaohua were dealing with the bride's family, the other people in the wedding procession had already been arranged to eat and drink. Even the horse that Zhang Xiaolong rode had been fed well. After coming out of Balagu, the horse no longer played music. At this time, everyone was full of energy and was ready to hurry. They still walked on the main road back. At this time, there were more people. Everyone was very interested in the wedding procession. Along the way, many people pointed at the wedding procession and commented on Zhang Xiaolong as the groom from time to time. They also guessed the appearance of the bride. It was a pity that the curtains of the bridal sedan were covered. Otherwise, everyone's eyes would look there, hoping to see the beauty of the bride. Chapter 53. The wedding procession hastened their journey, and after walking for a while, they arrived at the main road that led to the Guozhuang house. Zhang Xiaolong looked at the sky and said, "It's still early and we're already halfway there. There shouldn't be a problem for us to rush back to the Guozhuang house. Let's rest for a while so that we can rush back in one go." Other than Zhang Xiaolong, Zhang Xiaohua, Lu Qian, and Lu Yeye, the rest of the group were all walking. Putting aside the fact that the sedan bearers were already exhausted from carrying people, the band members were also carrying a few kilograms of heavy instruments. They were also very tired from rushing all the way. When they heard the word rest, they immediately walked to the side of the road and sat down on the grass. They poured out water from their gourds or leather pouches to quench their thirst. The sedan was carefully carried by the sedan bearers to a big tree by the side of the road, and the sedan bearers walked away to rest. Zhang Xiaolong also dismounted and walked to the side of the sedan with Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaolong took 2 leather pouches from beside the stirrups and handed one to Zhang Xiaohua for him to drink. He held the other pouch in his hand and walked to the side of the sedan. He said to the person in the sedan, "Qian Qian, you must be thirsty. Do you want to drink some water?" Lu Qian did not speak, but it was the bridesmaid Lu Yeye who spoke first. "Elder sister probably isn't thirsty. She's still reminiscing about the twin lotus flowers on one stalk. Why are you thinking about your bride? Isn't I still in this sedan? Why are you asking me if I'm thirsty?" Zhang Xiaolong and Lu Yeye had only met a few times and had heard from Lu Qian that this cousin of his had a straightforward personality. Now that he saw her mocking him, he did not mind and only said, "Isn't she the elder sister? You're the younger sister. Of course I should ask the elder first." Lu Yeye continued, "Oh, I didn't expect brother-in-law to be so quick-witted. Why didn't I see it before? TSK, elder sister's eyes are really sharp." Then she curled her lips and asked softly, "Elder sister, do you want to drink some water?" Lu Qian's head was still covered with a red veil as she said in a low voice, "I'm not too thirsty, but I still want to drink some to moisten my throat. If you're thirsty, you can drink first." Lu Yeye said, "All right then, I'll drink it first. I've been busy with your matters since I woke up this morning. I haven't had a single drop of water. Just now, I've talked a lot with them in your room. My mouth is already dry. Wait for me to finish drinking it, then I'll give it to you." After saying that, Lu Yeye lifted the curtain of the bridal sedan chair and walked out. Zhang Xiaolong was standing beside the sedan. When he saw Lu Yeye come out, he quickly handed over the leather bag filled with water. At this time, from the direction of Lu Town, a few people on horses galloped over. The three in front were very handsome horses. The three people on the horses looked very similar. Their faces were charred black, their eyes were squinted, and they had a lecherous look. They were about 40 years old, and wore very bright clothes. The four people behind them were ordinary tall horses. The people on the horses were of different height and weight, but they were all dressed in black and had weapons at their waists. Their eyes occasionally wandered around the road, and they seemed to be very careful. These people saw Zhang Xiaolong and his group of people who were listening and resting at the side of the road from afar. They didn't care and hurriedly took a few glances before passing by. Coincidentally, one of the three in front was tilting his head and waving his whip when Lu Yeye came out from the bridal sedan chair. She used her hand to take the leather bag handed to her by Zhang Xiaolong, and gave Zhang Xiaolong an angry smile. That Lu Yeye was originally round and smooth, and her eyebrows were delicate. Today she was Lu Qian's bridesmaid, so she dressed up even more beautifully. Zhang Xiaolong didn't think much of this smile, but the person on the horse had a burst of lewd light in his eyes. He couldn't help but let out a sound. Immediately, he tightened the reins in his hand and gradually slowed down the horse. The two people beside him saw him slow down and immediately turned their heads to ask, "Lao Er, what's wrong?" That person said, "Big brother, something wonderful has come. What do you think of the woman beside the bridal sedan chair?" The boss looked up and couldn't help but smack his lips and say, "Tsk tisk, she's really not bad. Although she's not an outstanding beauty, she's still a pretty girl from a humble family." Another person followed up and said, "Big brother, these past few days in Lu Town, you've been having a lot of fun. These words are used very well." That second brother said, "Big brother, last year you found a beautiful woman in that Xian manor. You obtained both wealth and beauty and had a fat new year. I, your brother, have seen you make her the wife of your stronghold. My heart itches. Although this Lu Town girl is interesting, she's still a woman of romance. She won't last long. I think this woman isn't bad. Why don't you get her into the stronghold, and let her be my concubine?" The boss said, "The deal before the new year was indeed a good deal. I thought it was his family who dug up the jewels from the mountain, and we just took the jewels. Who knew that the woman in his family was so beautiful? How could I let her go? However, second brother, this place is not far from Lu Town and is on the official road. I'm afraid that our actions will attract the attention of the authorities." Another person said, "Big brother, you worry too much. Although it's not far from Lu Town, there are not many people here. Just the few bumpkins who came to escort the bride don't seem to be from this town. If they rob someone, then so be it. It's not the first time we've done this. After we've done it, we don't have to kill anyone. If we leave our names behind, I'm sure they won't dare to report it to the authorities. Let's hurry back to the village. Even if we catch them, the authorities will know." The second brother said, "Lao Er's words are very reasonable. Big brother, let's do it." The boss looked around and seemed to be hesitating. Lao Er said, "Second brother, the woman in front of the sedan chair is yours. The bride in the sedan chair is mine. Today I'll be the groom." "Ha ha." Lao Er said, "Hee hee, the woman in the sedan chair still doesn't know whether she's fat or thin, beautiful or ugly. I'm not interested. This chick has soft skin and tender flesh. I think she suits me." Lao Er said, "Second brother, you don't know this. If the bride isn't beautiful, why would she choose such a beautiful girl to be her bridesmaid? I think the bride must be more beautiful than her." Lao Er said, "Lao Er is clever. However, if I didn't turn around and see it, how can you be the groom today? Tonight before you enter the room, you have to toast me 3 big bowls." Lao Er said with a sinister smile, "Same to you. Let's go to the bridal chamber together." The three of them talked from afar, and looked at the sedan chair from time to time. It seemed that they already had a plan in mind. The 4 people next to them didn't say anything. They surrounded the 3 of them in a circle, as if they were used to it. Lao Er saw that the boss was still hesitating and said unhappily, "Big brother, what's there to think about? We brothers don't have any fresh girls to serve us this new year. We can't compare to you. You have a beautiful woman in your bed." Lao Er saw that Lao Er was unhappy and Lao Er was eager to try. He laughed and said, "Well said, who have we Shi Chui 3 wolves been afraid of? Big brother has meat to eat. We can't let the brothers drink only soup. Let's go. Today we'll do a good job and let the brothers eat meat." Finished speaking, the three of them turned their horses around and rushed towards Zhang Xiaolong and the others. The other 4 people also came from the side. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua had finished drinking water and handed her leather bag to Lao Er. His ears were very sensitive. He heard the sound of horses galloping away and then turning back. He immediately looked up and saw 7 people rushing towards him. He became alert and quickly said to Zhang Xiaolong, "Big brother, be careful. The group of people who just passed by our back. Is there something wrong?" Zhang Xiaolong was just talking to Lu Qian and Lu Yeye. He didn't notice the horses passing by. Now that he heard Zhang Xiaohua's reminder, he immediately looked up and saw the Shi Chui 3 wolves looking at him with lustful eyes. He shouted in his heart, "Not good. Why did I encounter such a thing again?" Just as he was about to have Lu Yeye hide inside the bridal sedan chair, the horses had already arrived in front of him. Zhang Xiaolong frowned and pulled Lu Yeye behind him. He cupped his fists and said, "What orders do you have for me?" The one who rushed at the front was the second brother of the Shi Chui 3 wolves. He saw Zhang Xiaolong salute but didn't answer. He didn't even slow down the horse. Borrowing the horse's momentum, he lifted his leg and kicked towards Zhang Xiaolong's chest. Although Zhang Xiaolong didn't practice martial arts, he was still a young man. He was agile. He quickly moved sideways and got Lu Yeye out of the way. The second brother's leg kicked below his shoulder. Zhang Xiaolong screamed and his body flew out. He fell on the side of the road far away. A mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth, and he fainted on his back. The water bag was also thrown far away, allowing the water to gush out. Zhang Xiaohua saw that his big brother was injured. He was shocked and wanted to run over. The third brother of the Shi Chui 3 wolves rode a horse and rushed towards him. He raised his hand and whipped. Zhang Xiaohua saw the whip coming and quickly dodged. He raised his hand and wanted to grab the whip. However, he had exhausted all his strength to pull the bow and shoot arrows this morning. At this moment, his arms were still sore and he couldn't use any strength. He watched the whip hit his face and could only tilt his head as much as possible. The whip fell on his shoulder. Zhang Xiaohua also screamed, "Ah!" and fell to the ground. The whip on his body was burning hot, and he couldn't help but cry. After the second brother and the third brother of the Shi Chui 3 wolves succeeded, they didn't stop. Instead, they rushed to the rest of the people resting on the side of the road, and raised their whips to hit them. The eldest brother ran to the front of the sedan chair. He didn't move forward. Instead, he tightened the reins and stopped. Seeing the second brother and the third brother running to the others, he said to the other 4 people around him, "Go and help them." The other 4 people immediately pulled out their weapons from their waists or horses and outflanked them from different directions. They shouted as they walked, "Shi Chui Mountain is working here. Those who have nothing to do with it should leave quickly." There were still some people on the road. When they saw these people rushing over and injuring people, they felt strange. There were also some busybodies who stopped to watch the fun. When they heard this, they immediately scattered like birds and animals and fled. The rest of the wedding procession was also very angry when they saw several people on horseback injuring the groom and the best man. They wanted to stand up and pick up the weapons in their hands to win with numbers. However, they didn't expect that the other party had knives and spears. Moreover, they were the bandits of Shi Chui Mountain. How could they still have the courage? They didn't have time to care about the others. They were all shouting mother and father. They didn't even want to eat anymore. They threw away everything in their hands and fled in all directions. In the blink of an eye, there were no extra people on the busy road just now. There were only Zhang Xiaolong lying on the ground, Zhang Xiaohua struggling to get up, Lu Yeye who was panicking and didn't know what to do, and the people of Shi Chui Mountain who succeeded in their plot and were complacent. Chapter 54. When the people of Shitsue Mountain saw the wedding procession running away, they didn't chase after them. They knew that these villagers were timid and wouldn't come back for a while. If they didn't kill them, they wouldn't resist. When they had the courage to come back, they would have returned to Shitsue Mountain. Lu Qian, who was in the bridal sedan, didn't know what had happened. She heard Zhang Xiaolong's words after Lu Yeye went out, so she knew that someone was coming. Then she heard Zhang Xiaolong scream. She felt pain in her heart and wanted to get out of the bridal sedan. However, the custom in the countryside was that the bride couldn't take off the red veil before entering the bridal chamber, so she hesitated. Then she heard Zhang Xiaohua's scream and the shouts of the people of Shitsue Mountain. She immediately knew that something was wrong. She made up her mind, tore off the red veil, opened the curtain and walked out. What she saw was Lu Yeye's trembling shoulders and the head of Shitsue Mountain's lecherous and regretful eyes. At this time, Lu Qian, who had been nourished by the well water of the Zhang family, was not at the same level as Lu Yeye. Her skin was as smooth as jade, her eyebrows were beautiful, and her almond-shaped eyes were charming. If she was not very beautiful in the eyes of young ruffian Lu Zhen a few months ago, now she was a beauty. In particular, her temperament, which was changing, was even more fascinating, like a fairy in the human world. The head of Shitsue Mountain couldn't help but feel regretful. This flower was picked by his third brother, who probably wouldn't let go. It was rare for him to take advantage of her. What a pity. Lu Qian didn't pay attention to the head of Shitsue Mountain, nor did she comfort Lu Yeye. Instead, she ran to see Zhang Xiaolong, who had fainted. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua also stood up. She endured the burning pain in her body, clenched her teeth, and didn't let her tears fall. She walked step by step towards her eldest brother. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua had no other thoughts. The seed that had been brewing in her heart for a long time had bloomed. She had made up her mind that she would no longer live a life of being at the mercy of others. If she survived today, she would only choose one path in the future, which was to practice martial arts. She would use absolute force to protect herself, her family, and the people in the world who needed to be protected. She would no longer allow others to trample on her dignity and the happiness of her family. At this moment, our Xiaohua had transformed, matured, and found a goal in life. However, the crisis was not over yet, but Zhang Xiaohua no longer cared about this. He knew that no matter how tragic the ending was, time would always pass and the end would come. He would face it bravely even if he lost his life. The people of Shitsue Mountain naturally didn't know that they had added fuel to the fire to promote the development of the martial arts world. At this time, they were arrogantly riding back, ready to snatch the fat meat in their mouths. Lu Qian ran in front of Zhang Xiaolong and knelt down. She looked at his blood-stained chest with heartache. She carefully picked up his head and placed it on her chest. She used her nails to pinch Zhang Xiaolong's philtrum. Lu Qian did not cry. She knew her situation. Any helpless action would only make the villain more arrogant. Perhaps her fate had been determined. She also had to say goodbye to her lover. When Zhang Xiaohua staggered to Zhang Xiaolong had slightly opened his eyes. He looked at his bride helplessly and was extremely indignant in his heart. Although the other party hurt him without talking, he, who had woken up, naturally knew the other party's intention. However, how could he resist? He looked around with difficulty. By the side of the road, there were only things left on the ground. There was not a single person. He sighed inwardly. The shoulder of the hand that had just recovered was dislocated by a kick. He could not move it. He used his other hand to hold the hand that was pinching his philtrum. He did not say anything. The two of them looked at each other. There was only deep love and endless resentment. Zhang Xiaohua looked at his beloved elder brother and his favorite sister-in-law. Such a scene made his heart ache. Lu Yeye, who was beside the sedan chair, saw Zhang Xiaolong wake up and quickly ran over. It seemed that it was safer here. The boss of Shitsue Mountain did not stop them and slowly rode his horse over. The other people also drove their horses and slowly surrounded them. The third brother of Shitsue Mountain waved the horsewhip in his hand and stared at Lu Qian, who was wearing a wedding dress. He felt extremely refreshed. This trip was really worth it. He got such a beautiful woman without any effort. In the future, he would have unlimited happiness. The second brother of Shitsue Mountain stared at Lu Qian. His heart was full of jealousy. He secretly regretted letting the third brother get the upper hand. However, when he looked at Lu Yeye's pale face, he felt a little comforted. He stole a glance at the greedy look of the eldest brother, and could not help but feel lucky. The bride was so beautiful. After returning to the mountain, he did not know who she would belong to. It was better for him not to get involved. When Lu Yeye saw that everyone was surrounding them, she could not help but hug her shoulders and asked with a trembling voice, what do you want to do?" The second brother of Shitsue Mountain said with a lewd smile, "We don't want to do anything. It's just that when we see this little brother being the groom today, our hearts are also itching. We want to be the groom and have a taste. How about it? Seeing your sister as the bride, do you also want to have a taste? Let's enter the bridal chamber together tonight." In fact, she already knew what the ending would be. At this time, when she heard the other party's affirmative answer, Lu Yeye was speechless. She just said in fear. Lu Qian's face was also as white as paper. She was very scared. But she held her lover's hand in her hand, so she did not tremble. Zhang Xiaolong said weakly, "Heroes, there are countless beauties in Lu Town. How can my wife enter the eyes of heroes? If you can let us husband and wife go today, we will definitely go bankrupt and send all our property to Shitsue Mountain in the future." The third brother of Shitsue Mountain laughed and said, "Your wife's beauty is very good in our eyes. It's your blessing to take a fancy to her. If you know what's good for you and let her go with us, we can still spare your lives. Otherwise, all of your heads will be chopped off. You won't be able to marry a wife even if you want to." The second brother of Shitsue Mountain also laughed and said, "You don't look like a son of a rich family. What gold and silver jewelry can tempt us? It's better to obediently give them away." At this time, from the distance of the main road, another person riding a horse rushed over. The people of Shitsue Mountain heard the sound of horse hooves from afar. They all looked up and saw that it was a person, so they did not care. Only the eldest brother frowned and said, "Why are you being so long-winded with them? Take them and leave. From time to time, there will be people passing by on the main road. Don't run into a large group of people. If they don't let go, chop off their heads." The second brother and the third brother heard this, and their expressions turned cold. They immediately agreed and jumped off the horse. They each rushed to Lu Yeye and Lu Qian. Seeing the bad guy rushing to the eldest sister-in-law, Zhang Xiaohua immediately blocked in front. The third brother of Shitsue Mountain reached out and grabbed Zhang Xiaohua's neck like lightning. He shook his hand and threw her to the side of the road. Then he reached out and grabbed Lu Qian's hand and pulled her onto the horse. Zhang Xiaolong pulled Lu Qian's hand hard, but he couldn't pull away the third brother of Shitsue Mountain. He watched Lu Qian's hand fall away from his own hand. His hand fell weakly on his chest and touched something hard on his chest. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaolong's eyes lit up. He seemed to think of something. He shouted, "Heroes, my family has relatives from Misty School. I have a token here as proof. We are all Jianghu people. Can you give me some face?" Misty School. The people of Shitsue Mountain were stunned. The second brother and the third brother let go of their hands. Lu Qian and Lu Yeye quickly returned to Zhang Xiaolong's side. The man riding a horse on the main road just passed by them at this time. He was concentrating on the road and didn't pay attention to the movement on the side of the road. When he heard Misty School, his ears couldn't help but twitch, and then he slowed down the horse. However, the people of Shitsue Mountain were focused on Zhang Xiaolong and didn't notice. The eldest brother of Shitsue Mountain jumped down from the horse and walked to Zhang Xiaolong and said, "Where is the token? Let me see." Zhang Xiaolong hurriedly used his good hand to take out the token that he accidentally put in his arms with difficulty and handed it over. The eldest brother of Shitsue Mountain carefully took it and looked at both sides carefully. His face was a little gloomy. He then handed it to the second brother and the third brother. The two of them also looked at it very seriously. Then they also handed the token to the eldest brother with a gloomy face. The three of them looked at each other. Their eyes were fierce and they didn't speak anymore. Then the eldest brother put the token into his arms and said with a sinister smile, What kind of bullshit token is this? The firewood picked up from the pile of firewood dares to be called a token? Do you know what Misty School is? You still dare to say that you have relatives. Forget it. I originally wanted to spare your lives. Now I'll do you a favor and save some food for your family. I'll send you to the underworld to rest. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua had stood up from the ground and walked to the eldest brother. She gritted her teeth and said, You want to kill us to silence us? The third brother of Shitsue Mountain said with a grim smile. Misty School is far away. If we kill you, who will know that it's us? You'd better tell them in their dreams. After that, he waved his hand and dragged Lu Qian and Lu Yeye over with the second brother of Shitsue Mountain. The other 4 people held weapons and were about to kill. At this critical moment, a voice came from behind. Who said that Misty School is far away? There is an ancient poem that says it well. Far away is close at hand. The people of Shitsue Mountain looked back. It was the person who came from afar. They thought that he had gone far, but unexpectedly he still stayed on the roadside. They saw that the man was tall and handsome. He was wearing gray clothes and there was a sword hanging on his waist. When the eldest brother of Shitsue Mountain saw the man coming over, he hurriedly stepped forward and saluted. He said, I'm Shitsue Mountain's third wolf. I'm here to do something. May I know your name? The man smiled back and said, I'm Misty School's Lu Yueming. Nice to meet you. I heard that I sent relatives here, so I came to see. Where is the token? Please let me take a look. The eldest brother of Shitsue Mountain said, Xiao Lu is mistaken. How can this person be a relative of your sect? Just now he took a fake token and wanted to impersonate it, but I put it away. Xiao Lu doesn't need to see it. Lu Yueming still smiled and said, Whether it's real or fake, my Misty School has the final say. Please let me take a look. I promise that as long as it's not an ethereal token, I'll leave immediately. Chapter 55. Seeing that he couldn't find an excuse, the boss of Shitsue Mountain said with a charming smile, No problem, Xiao Lu, I will take it out for you. After that, he fumbled in his arms for a moment, took out the token, and carefully handed it to Lu Yueming. Lu Yueming stared at the boss of Shitsue Mountain, and didn't say anything. Seeing that the token was handed over, he reached out and took it. But at this moment, something unexpected happened. After the boss of Shitsue Mountain gave the token to Lu Yueming, he didn't withdraw his hand. Instead, he suddenly sped up and handed it forward again. But this time, it wasn't a token in his hand, but a small dagger. The tip of the dagger emitted a blue light under the sunlight. Needless to say, it was quenched with poison. The dagger wasn't aimed at Lu Yueming's throat or chest, or other vital parts. Instead, it was aimed at his hand that had just received the token. It seemed that the boss of Shitsue Mountain was very confident about the poison on the dagger. He only hoped that it could make a wound on Lu Yueming's hand. The hope was beautiful, and the goal was very close, but how could a disciple from the Misty School be compared with a martial artist from the wilderness like Shitsue Mountain? Lu Yueming turned his wrist and the token in his hand changed direction. The edge of the token swept across the boss of Shitsue Mountain from top to bottom. The boss of Shitsue Mountain only felt his wrist go numb and the dagger fell from his hand. But Lu Yueming didn't stop. He waved the front of the token at the handle of the dagger. The poisonous dagger was like an arrow released from a bow, quickly shooting towards the boss of Shitsue Mountain. The distance between the two was close, and the speed of the dagger was very fast. Before the boss of Shitsue Mountain could react, the dagger was inserted into his forehead with a pop sound. He looked at Lu Yueming in disbelief, turned over, and fell into the dust. The black color on his forehead quickly covered his face at a speed visible to the naked eye, and spread to his neck and body. But at this time, the boss of Shitsue Mountain's body had gradually become cold and had lost consciousness. When Lu Yueming saw that the poison on the dagger was so strong, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. Then he looked at the rest of the people. Things had developed to this point, so it didn't matter whether he looked at the token or not. In fact, as early as when the boss of Shitsue Mountain reached out to take out the token, The other two wolves also took the opportunity to take their weapons from the back of the horse. They were all padeos. Now that they saw that their boss was killed, they were furious. They shouted at the 4 guards beside them and rushed forward. Lu Yueming didn't panic when facing the attacks of the 2 men. He calmly used his body movement to fight. From time to time he glanced at the other 4 people who were hesitating whether to attack or not. Those 4 people were the personal guards of their boss. They had always listened to their boss's orders. Now that they saw that their boss was dead and the opponent was so strong, they naturally wanted to retreat. However, the 2nd and 3rd leaders of the mountain stronghold were still alive. They also asked them to attack, so they hesitated. Lu Yueming saw that the 4 guards didn't have the intention to attack for the time being. He was overjoyed. Although it wasn't too difficult for him to fight against 7 people with his martial arts, if someone suddenly used the poison just now in the chaos, he would be very scared. Therefore he no longer moved around. Instead, he pulled out his sword and used the tip of his sword to display the unique skill of the Misty 7 Swords. He strived to defeat the opponent in front of him in a short time. The unique skill of the Misty School was really extraordinary. In just a few moves he forced the 2 wolves of Shitsue Mountain to the point that they couldn't fight back. When the 2 wolves of Shitsue Mountain saw that there were no helpers, they were exhausted and immediately shouted, "Why aren't you attacking? Otherwise you will be served by the family rules of the mountain stronghold." When the 4 guards heard the family rules, they had no choice but to take their weapons and come forward to help. At this time, they heard Lu Yueming laugh and say, "It's too late to come now." After that, he tightened his sword and the tip of his sword raised the blade of the 2nd wolf of Shitsue Mountain. The long sword rushed forward, and the tip of the sword went straight to the 2nd wolf's throat. When the 2nd wolf came to his senses and dodged, it was already too late. The tip of Lu Yueming's sword touched the throat of the 2nd wolf of Shitsue Mountain, and then withdrew, leaving only a little red there. The 2nd wolf of Shitsue Mountain looked stunned and fell to the ground. When the 3rd wolf of Shitsue Mountain saw that Lu Yueming's swordsmanship was so exquisite, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. He no longer moved forward and ran away. How could Lu Yueming let him escape? He displayed the misty steps and arrived behind him like a shadow. He raised his hand and stabbed the back of the 3rd wolf of Shitsue Mountain. The sword didn't pierce very deep, just right into the heart. Then he withdrew his sword and the 3rd wolf also fell to the ground. Lu Yueming looked at the blood on the sword and shook his head. The other 4 guards didn't want to intervene. When they saw that the 3 wolves of Shitsue Mountain were killed by Lu Yueming, they immediately threw away their weapons and knelt on the ground. They kept kowtowing and shouting, "Hero, spare our lives." Lu Yueming looked at the 4 people kneeling and ignored them. Instead, he walked to the front of Zhang Xiaolong and the others and stared at them for a while. Then he took out the token from his arms and looked at it carefully. His brows wrinkled. Then he asked Zhang Xiaolong, "Which one of you is junior sister Shue's relative?" Zhang Xiaolong looked at Lu Yueming and said with difficulty, "Sorry, Xiao Lu, none of us is heroine Shue's relative." Lu Yueming's brows wrinkled deeper and asked in a cold voice, "Then where did you get this token?" Zhang Xiaohua saw that her brother was having difficulty speaking and Lu Qian and Lu Yeye were still in shock, so she said, "Hero Lu, it's like this." Then she told him in detail what happened in Lu Town during the new year. After listening, Lu Yueming smiled and asked, "Then you've seen junior sister Shui?" Zhang Xiaohua said, "We've seen heroine Shui, but she was wearing a veil. We didn't see her real face and didn't know that her surname was Shui." Lu Yueming nodded after listening. He knew about Wen Hai and Shui Qing's trip to Lu Town that day, but he didn't know about the episode with Zhang Xiaolong and the others. However, according to Zhang Xiaohua's description, it should be true and credible. The Misty School's token had always been strictly managed. Shui Qing was able to leave the token with the intention of being thorough. Since he was able to encounter this matter, he could go back and tell junior sister Qing about it. Maybe he could even get her favor. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but smile. Thinking of this, Lu Yueming walked forward and carefully examined Zhang Xiaolong's injuries. First, he reconnected his dislocated arm. Then he took out some medicinal pills and let Zhang Xiaolong swallow them. The poor Zhang Xiaolong was injured the last time he saved Lu Qian. This time, before he could marry Lu Qian, he was gloriously injured again. Each injury was more serious than the last. This time, although he didn't injure his muscles and bones, the kick from the horse caused him serious internal injuries. He wouldn't be able to recover without resting for half a year. Of course, Lu Yueming didn't know about the well water, so he could only tell Zhang Xiaolong to rest well for half a year. After taking care of Zhang Xiaolong's matters, Lu Yueming turned his head and looked at the 4 guards kneeling at the side. He seemed to be thinking about how to deal with them. The 4 guards looked at Lu Yueming and knew that this was the moment to decide their fate. They immediately kowtowed again. Some of their foreheads even bled. Zhang Xiaohua couldn't bear to watch from the side. Lu Yueming seemed to see Zhang Xiaohua's eyes. He smiled and asked, "Xiaohua, how do you think we should deal with them?" Zhang Xiaohua saw Hero Lu ask him, and his expression was a little uneasy. He whispered, "Since they didn't hurt us or anyone else, I think it's better to let them go." Lu Yueming looked at him with interest and said, "Are you pitiful because they are kowtowing?" Zhang Xiaohua blushed and said, "Yes, looking at them kneeling there and kowtowing nonstop, they are really very pitiful." Lu Yueming put away his smile and said, "Xiaohua, you have to remember, pitiful people must have a hateful side. Just now, it wasn't that they didn't want to hurt people. First, their fort master didn't give the order to kill people. Second, this is the Great Tao. Killing people will cause a lot of trouble. They probably can't afford to provoke it. If the one being killed now wasn't their fort master but me, do you think they would be so pitiful? Do you think they would spare your lives?" Zhang Xiaohua nodded thoughtfully. Lu Yueming continued, "Do you know what it means to eradicate evil completely? It means to eradicate evil completely. Don't leave a trace of evil behind. If I let them go today, they might come looking for trouble tomorrow. At that time, you will want to cry but have no tears." When the 4 people heard Lu Yueming educate Zhang Xiaohua like this, they all raised their heads and looked at each other. They immediately fled in all directions. How could they be in such a sorry state just now? Lu Yueming looked at Zhang Xiaohua's stunned expression and chuckled. He seemed to have been prepared. First, he picked up the padao of the 2 wolves of Shizue Mountain. One in each hand, he pulled it out from the left and right. The padao was like a rainbow piercing through the sun. It pierced into the back of the 2 people. Pucci. The remaining force didn't decrease. It rushed forward and was firmly nailed into the ground. The moment Lu Yueming threw out the padao, he immediately used his lightness skill to chase after one of them. In the blink of an eye, he was behind that person. Lu Yueming stretched out his hand and stabbed his sword into the back of the person's heart. After pulling out the sword, he didn't check and immediately slanted to chase after the other person. The last guard seemed to have good lightness skill. By the time Lu Yueming chased after him, he was already dozens of feet away. Lu Yueming took a deep breath and sped up his pace. His body seemed to fly as he quickly floated towards that person. Not long after, he caught up behind him. That person seemed to have felt Lu Yueming's pursuit and shot a hidden weapon at him. Lu Yueming didn't dare to catch it. He used one foot to flip into the air and avoided the hidden weapon. Then his body stretched out in the air, and his sword pierced the top of that person's head. This place was very far away from Zhang Xiaolong and the others, but Zhang Xiaohua still clearly saw the moment the sword pierced the top of that guard's head. After Lu Yueming killed the last guard, he didn't stop. He turned around and returned to the original place. Looking at Zhang Xiaohua's stunned expression, he shook his head. He wiped the bloody sword on the clothes of the dead person and put it back into the scabbard. Lu Yueming walked in front of Zhang Xiaolong and the others who were also stunned. He handed over the Misty School token and said, "You should keep this token. It's hard to guarantee that it will be useful in the future." Chapter 56. Zhang Xiaolong hurriedly and carefully placed this thing that had saved his family's lives into his arms. Lu Yueming didn't wait for Zhang Xiaolong to speak and ordered, "You 4 ride the original horses and go quickly. Don't touch the things of these thieves. Leave the corpses and horses where they are." I heard that there are 3 leaders in Shitsue Mountain. It seems that they have been killed by me. It is estimated that Shitsue Mountain will scatter in the future. You don't have to worry about their revenge. In addition, you don't have to hide the fact that I saved you, but remember not to say my name or the name of Misty School. Do you understand? Zhang Xiaolong didn't quite understand, but he nodded deeply. Then the 4 of them rode on one horse and moved forward. Lu Yueming also jumped on the horse and was about to leave. But looking at the mess on the side of the road, he frowned and thought for a while. Then he jumped off the horse and put the 7 corpses on the remaining 7 horses. He loosened the reins and let the horses run on their own. Then he got on the horse again and galloped away. The road was quiet again. After the time it took to eat a meal, the people who were hiding nearby stealthily snuck over. Seeing that there were no bandits by the roadside, they tidied up the bridal sedan chairs and other things, thinking that the bride and groom had already been murdered. Feeling sorry for them and lucky for their own luck, they slowly returned to Guozhuang. In the small courtyard of Guozhuang House, since Zhang Xiaolong led the wedding procession out, the people in the family were busy. They not only greeted the neighbors in the village and asked them to sit down, but also prepared all the things needed for the wedding ceremony according to the countryside. Zhang Kai and Guo Sufei ran in and out almost without touching the ground. They kept muttering something and looked here and there, for fear of missing something. When the sun was high in the sky, the couple was slightly relieved and sat down tiredly. This poor family was so tired to marry a wife. Wouldn't the rich family be tired to death? But they forgot that they had special servants. How could they do it themselves? Everything was prepared at home, and the necessary ceremony had been entrusted to the people in the village who were familiar with it, so there shouldn't be any mistakes. Seeing that it was still early, the 2 of them went to the head chef to get some food and hurried to fill their stomachs. After resting for a short while, Zhang Kai and Guo Sufei arrived at their grandmother's hut. Their grandmother had woken up early. Guo Sufei had made a new set of clothes for her mother a few days ago. She had just put it on today. When her grandmother heard someone coming in, she asked, "Guo Sufei, Xiaolong and the others are back, right?" Guo Sufei smiled and said, "Mother, not yet, but I think it will be soon. Please come with us to the central room and wait." Grandma was also very happy and agreed repeatedly. The couple carefully supported their grandmother to the central room and sat down in the chair in the middle. His grandmother's health was extremely poor, and she was usually lying in bed. On Zhang Xiaolong's wedding day, he needed to kowtow to his parents and elders. Today, his grandmother forced herself to stay awake, waiting for her grandson and granddaughter-in-law to kowtow to her. Her lifelong wish was finally fulfilled. However, after sitting for a long time, they didn't hear the sound of firecrackers and musical instruments at the entrance of the village. Seeing that it was time, Zhang Kai and Guo Sufei couldn't help but feel anxious. Even their grandmother seemed to be unable to hold on. Just when everyone was guessing, suddenly someone shouted, "Look, it's Lu Er, the Swana player. Why did he come back?" Sure enough, across the low courtyard wall of the Zhang family's courtyard, a person could be seen running here from a distance. Wasn't he one of the people in the wedding procession? Zhang Kai's heart couldn't help but tighten. He knew something was wrong and immediately rushed out of the central room. Before he reached the courtyard, he heard Lu Er's horse shout, "Not good, Xiaolong and his wife encountered the bandits of Shitsue Mountain." This sentence was like a ladle of water dripping into a pot of oil. The Zhang family's small courtyard immediately exploded. Some timid people immediately patted their buttocks and ran away like a wisp of smoke, as if the horse thief was right in front of them. Most of the people were talking to each other. Some of their faces were obviously gloating, and some of them were regretful. It was not clear whether they were regretting Zhang Xiaolong or Lu Qian, but most of them were sympathetic. Before Zhang Kai rushed to the gate of the courtyard, he heard a cry behind him. "Mother!" Zhang Kai's heart thumped. He quickly turned back and ran to the central room. Sure enough, he saw his grandmother lying on the ground with a pale face. She had fainted. Guo Sufei was crying and rubbing her grandmother's chest in a hurry, trying to help her grandmother get the thick phlegm out of her throat. Zhang Kai also hurried forward and kept knocking on her grandmother's back. Fortunately, her throat squirmed for a while. She opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of phlegm. followed by a mouthful of blood. She said, Xiaolong. She was already on the verge of death. At this time, Guosufei had no time to think about Zhang Xiaolong. She cried and carried her mother to the bed in the small room with Zhang Kai and Zhang Xiaohu. The husband and wife had time to look at each other. They really didn't understand. How could a happy event turn into a funeral in a blink of an eye? The husband and wife looked at their grandmother whose face was pale gold. They felt like a knife was being twisted in their hearts. Zhang Xiaolong's life was uncertain, and their mother was going to go far away. What should they do? Zhang Kai left Guosufei to take care of her grandmother. He and Zhang Xiaohu then went to the central room. Some of the people in the courtyard had already left. Many people had also entered the central room and were listening to Lu Er. Seeing Zhang Kai come in, Lu Er started talking from the beginning. This Lu Er's mouth was also very nimble. He actually described Zhang Xiaolong and Zhang Xiaohua's archery to how they solved the difficult problem vividly. He also remembered Zhang Xiaolong's poem without missing a word. Hearing this, the people praised Zhang Kai for having two good sons. At the same time, they also felt sorry. These two good children were probably in danger now. Zhang Kai was even more distressed when he heard this. He was anxious to know what happened when they encountered the bandits, but Lu Er's description was so detailed that he wished he could tear his mouth open and dig out the last words. When Lu Er said, "For fiendish bandits with weapons in their hands chased us away," he stopped talking. Everybody was startled and asked, "And then?" Lu Er said innocently, "No, I don't know where they went. But I was worried about Brother Zhang, so I quickly came to report." Zhang Kai seemed to be grasping at a life-saving straw. He asked, "Then you didn't see how the bandits dealt with Xiaolong and the others?" Lu Er said, "No, the bandits drove us away. Xiaolong and Xiaohua, as well as the two girls in the sedan, stayed behind." Zhang Kai felt lucky and said, "Xiaolong and the others might not be dead yet." Everyone nodded in agreement. But they were thinking the same thing as Zhang Kai. The bandits had left them behind, so the chances of them surviving were not high. Even if they could survive, the delicate bride and bridesmaids would have been eaten by the wolves. No matter what, the Zhang family's wedding today would be ruined. Sigh, good people don't have good karma. The Zhang family's good deeds usually turned into good karma, but in the end, they didn't have any good karma. Fate really made fools of people. When Zhang Xiaohu heard this, he couldn't sit still. He said, "Father, I'll go take a look now. What happened to big brother and third brother?" When he finished speaking, he was about to leave. Before Zhang Kai could say anything, everyone immediately pulled him back and said, "Lao Er, you're the only male in the family right now. We can't let anything happen to you. You can't go by yourself. Wait a moment. We'll organize the strong men in the village. It won't be too late to go after we get weapons." Thus, everyone in the courtyard quickly went out and mobilized the young laborers of the Guozhuang house. They held hoes and other tools in their hands, and prepared to go to the place where the incident happened to see what happened. But just as the group of loose people walked out of the Guozhuang house's village entrance, they saw a horse coming towards them, carrying 4 people on its back. A sharp-eyed person immediately recognized them and shouted loudly, "It's Zhang Xiaolong and Zhang Xiaohua. Ah, they're back. They're still alive." Everyone cheered and rushed over. Zhang Xiaohu rushed at the front of the crowd. When everyone received Zhang Xiaolong and the others, they saw the tattered clothes on the 2 brothers and the blood on their bodies. A few people carefully carried Zhang Xiaolong down. Zhang Xiaohu also carried Zhang Xiaohua down from the horse. He looked at the marks on his shoulder with heartache. Lu Qian and Lu Yeye didn't get down from the horse. They were still in shock and their legs were still weak. They couldn't walk. Some people led the horses forward slowly. Some people with fast legs had already run back to report to the Zhang family. Before the crowd reached the center of the village, Zhang Kai and Guosufei, who had received the news, had already rushed over. When they saw their sons and daughter-in-law were alive and well, they couldn't help but cry. They only used their hands to carefully touch their sons' wounds and said, "Good, good." It wasn't until they reached the entrance of the Zhang family's courtyard that Guosufei woke up from her dream. She said, "Xiaolong Qian Qian, come over and meet your grandmother." At this time, She didn't care whether Lu Qian could walk or not. She went forward to help her get down from the horse, and helped her walk into her grandmother's house. Grandmother was already a little delirious at this time. When she heard that her grandson came back alive, she couldn't help but feel refreshed. There was a flush on her face. Her gray eyes seemed to be able to see her beloved grandson and granddaughter-in-law. She muttered, "Bow to heaven and earth, bow to heaven and earth." Hearing her mother's words, Guosufei also woke up. The custom in the village was that when a happy event met with a funeral of an elder, one had to step back. Grandmother didn't want to delay Zhang Xiaolong's wedding because of her departure. Therefore, Guosufei also gritted her teeth and hurriedly asked Zhang Kai to prepare for the wedding ceremony. Grandmother was also energized at this time. She insisted on going to the central room to accept the kneeling of her new daughter-in-law and grandson. Guosufei and Zhang Kai had no choice but to carry their mother to the central room. "Please collect, thank you." Chapter 57. The wedding ceremony of Zhang Xiaolong and Lu Qian was carried out in a hurry in the central room of the Zhang family's small courtyard. On the chair in the middle of the central room, Zhang Xiaolong's grandmother was reclining there with a flushed face. Zhang Kai and Guosufei were holding her arms on both sides. When Zhang Xiaolong and Lu Qian kowtowed to her, Zhang Xiaolong's grandmother smiled very brightly. However, the blush on her face was fading visibly. When the villagers who specialized in etiquette shouted, "The ceremony is over," the bride and groom entered the bridal chamber. Only then did the blush fade away. Zhang Xiaolong closed her eyes peacefully with a smile on her face. Guosufei and Zhang Kai felt that their hands were heavy. Guosufei immediately shouted sadly, "Mother!" This was the second time today that she called her mother in the central room, and it was also the last time. At this time, Lu Qian did not care about the rules. She tore off the red veil and carried her grandmother's body back to the small house with Guosufei and Zhang Kai. In the courtyard, the people in the central room looked at each other. They did not know whether the Zhang family was going to hold a wedding or a funeral today. Only the acquaintances who knew the situation secretly wiped their tears. Zhang Xiaolong walked into the small house with the help of Zhang Xiaohu and Zhang Xiaohua. On the bed in the small house, Zhang Xiaolong's grandmother was lying there, as if she was sleeping peacefully. Without the interference of the illness and the fear of disturbing her grandson's sleep, she was sleeping peacefully with a smile on her face. Zhang Xiaohua looked at his grandmother's face that had been engraved in his heart. It seemed that he did not feel sad, but his heart was empty, very empty. His mother's sorrowful cry came into his ears. He himself was very puzzled. He should be very sad, but why was he not? Was his grandmother really resting? No, definitely not. Zhang Xiaohua could not feel the life that he could feel a few days ago in his grandmother's body. His grandmother was really gone. She really left him. Zhang Xiaohua silently looked at her crying mother, father, and brothers. There were no tears in the corners of her eyes, and her eyes weren't even red. In his grandmother's small house, the mournful cries of the relatives continued for a long time before most of the people in the courtyard dispersed. When Zhang Kai calmed himself down and came out, he looked at the villagers in the courtyard. He could only apologetically cup his hands and ask them to help him put away all the festive items and replace them with the black and white items used for the funeral. When they were done, the wedding procession that had escaped for their lives came back in scattered pieces. When they saw the funeral procession, they thought it was for Zhang Xiaolong and the others. When they heard the explanation, they knew the reason. The musical instruments in the village were used for both festive and funeral processions. When they saw the situation, they sympathized and hurriedly sent people to get the funeral clothes. They changed on the spot, ate some food, drank some water, and immediately played the funeral music. At this time, the people in the Zhang family also put on mourning clothes. Zhang Xiaolong was seriously injured and could only be bedridden again. It was just that pitiful Lu Qian. She had just married into the family and had to change into mourning clothes. She also had to wash and change her grandmother's clothes. It was really difficult for her. Zhang Kai looked at his busy daughter-in-law and his heart was full of guilt. When he was young, his parents died. He did not enjoy the happiness of a family reunion, and married into the Guozhuang house. Guosufei's parents loved him like a son. After sending off his father-in-law and mother-in-law, he felt as if his heart was being cut by a knife. Thinking about the little things that happened in this small courtyard, his tears could not help but fall again. Xiaolong had the good fortune to marry Lu Qian. He hoped that when he left in the future, he would not find trouble for them. Grandmother's coffin and clothes were prepared early. Not long after, it was ready. Zhang Kai, Zhang Xiaohu, Guosufei, and Lu Qian put grandmother's body in the coffin together. They asked people to carry the coffin to the central room. The central room was not big. After the coffin was put in, there was almost no space left. According to the custom in the countryside, the coffin of the funeral had to be left at home for 7 days for the family and relatives to worship. After this time, the lid could be nailed and the coffin could be placed in a place. Funerals were not as good as happy events. There were many things that the family did not care about. Zhang Kai and Guosufei went to the village patriarch and asked people to come and help. The Guozhuang house's family was also old. There were many people who came to help, so the funeral went smoothly. At night, the noise in the courtyard gradually faded. The swaying light in the central room pulled the shadow of the coffin, which kept swaying in front of Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua and the rest knelt in the small space beside the coffin. Guosufei kept sobbing and seemed to have used up all her strength. Lu Qian also knelt beside Guosufei and used her hands to support her, wiping her tears from time to time. Her grandmother treated her extremely well. Although they did not talk much, her grandmother would always reveal a kind smile whenever she saw her, which made her feel endless warmth. Although she was already mentally prepared, it was too unexpected for her grandmother to pass away during her wedding ceremony. Thinking about her short ceremony, Lu Qian did not want to blame this kind and considerate elder. Perhaps this was all fate. Lu Qian could also see the apology in Zhang Kai's eyes. She deeply felt the warmth of this family. However, this was the beginning of her marriage to the Zhang family. Would the future be a blessing or a curse? Was this a warning? In fact, looking at Guosufei's sad appearance and thinking about her grandmother, she felt that her life was worth living. She had many grandchildren and a harmonious family. Except for some poverty, everything was perfect. She did not know what she would be like when she was old. Just as Lu Qian was thinking about random things, Zhang Xiaohua's mind was also constantly turning. Zhang Xiaohua knelt in the shadow of the corner, looked at the huge coffin in front of him, and thought, "Is this the final destination of my grandmother's life?" Ever since everyone had told them about what had happened at home that night, Zhang Xiaohua had been thinking, "If I knew martial arts, I could have chased away the bandits when they attacked. If my brother and I could have married my sister-in-law safely, my grandmother wouldn't have left so early. She would have happily watched my brother and sister-in-law get married. She might even have been able to hold my brother and sister-in-law's child happily." Zhang Xiaohua's thoughts were in a mess. Perhaps he had thought about a lot of things. Many hypotheses only had one fulcrum, and that was that he must know martial arts and have the ability to turn the tide. But did he have it? Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua finally made the first decision in his life. He wanted to learn martial arts. But how to learn martial arts? He was still confused, but since he had a target, everything would be easy to handle. Thinking of learning martial arts, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly thought of Misty. From Wenwenhai, Xueqing, to Lu Yueming, everyone left a deep impression on him. That momentum of controlling everything, that pleasure of punishing evil, could only make Zhang Xiaohua's eyes filled with stars. There was also the power of the Misty School. A sign could make people not dare to act rashly. They could take out a few hundred taels of silver without daring to make a sound. For a child who grew up in a mountain village like Zhang Xiaohua, it was an unimaginable temptation. Perhaps, a real man should live like this, and not shelter under the wings of others when disaster struck, and ask for help from a sign. Moreover, even if the leader of the bandits was eliminated, it was hard to guarantee that the bandits would not come back. What should he do at that time? Could a sign make people retreat? Thinking that the lives of his family were tied together by a sign, Zhang Xiaohua's heart was filled with endless emotions. He thought, and his eyes slowly closed along with the swaying of the shadow. He actually fell asleep. The flickering like breathing came to his dreams as promised. At this time it was midnight. After busying himself with the matters outside, and sending off the people who helped, Zhang Kai dragged his tired body back to the central room. In the room, his wife's cries were still there, and her voice was already hoarse. He also went to comfort her. The old woman had already left, and the days had to go on. As soon as he entered the room, he saw Zhang Xiaohua curled up in the corner sleeping. His heart could not help but ache. What a good child. He was busy with the old woman's affairs and forgot about him. Zhang Xiaolong was injured and had already fallen asleep on the Kong. His youngest son was also injured. The whip wound on his shoulder made people cry. He had suffered such a serious injury at his age, not much worse than Xiaolong. He just changed his clothes and could not see him, so he forgot about him. Should he blame himself for being careless, or blame himself for having too many things to do today? Zhang Kai was secretly annoyed. He carefully carried Zhang Xiaohua, wanting to carry him back to the Kong. Unfortunately, after trying he could not carry him. He could not help but smile bitterly in his heart. The child had grown up, and he was also old. He could not be carried when he was young. He called out to Zhang Xiaohu, who was also kneeling in the shadows. The two of them then lifted Zhang Xiaohua up. When they were about to leave the room, Guosufei spoke. She wiped her tears and said, "Tonight, let's put Xiaohua in Xiaolong's room. If the child wakes up in the night and thinks of his grandmother, he will be scared." A mother's love was so attentive. Guosufei was mourning her mother's death, but when she saw her son, she could still think of her son. Zhang Xiaohu interrupted. "Mother, Xiaohua is asleep. He won't wake up even if you water him. Don't worry." Guosufei said. "That won't do. He's still young. If he wakes up he will be scared. It's better to put him in Xiaolong's room. I can watch over him." Zhang Kai and Zhang Xiaohu then gently put Zhang Xiaohua next to Xiaolong, who was already sleeping soundly. Guosufei also washed her face. Holding the oil lamp, she carefully lifted Zhang Xiaohua's clothes. Looking at the whip wound on his shoulder, the scar was like a centipede lying on Xiaohua's body. Then looking at Xiaohua's childish face, Guosufei could not help but burst into tears again. This child was so seriously injured that he did not even tell her in detail when he came back. After changing his clothes, he went to watch over his grandmother's coffin. He did not even eat dinner. From the morning until now, he had experienced so many hardships and endured so much pressure. As his mother, she had long forgotten about him. At this moment, if he was not so tired, perhaps he would still be accompanying her in the central room. It was better to let him have a good rest. Guosufei came out from the inner room and let Zhang Xiaohu and Lu Qian go back to rest. She and Zhang Kai came to accompany her grandmother. Zhang Xiaohu and Lu Qian did not agree at first, but Guosufei insisted again and again. Only then did they go back. Zhang Xiaohu naturally slept in the inner room, so that he could take care of his two injured brothers at any time. Lu Qian, on the other hand, fell asleep as soon as she laid down on the Kong bed. Today's encounter was too bizarre. Please accept it. Thank you. In the works related, there is a prose of longing. Everyone please enjoy it. Chapter 58. The next morning when the sun rose, a group of people was already waiting quietly in front of the jujube forest on the ring finger of Stoneman Peak. The person in front was the green-clothed and green-scarfed householder Yanming. Behind him were three young men, one of whom was Lu Yueming, who had saved Zhang Xiaolong and the others on the road yesterday. Lu Yueming was not as arrogant as he was yesterday. He stood behind the crowd with his hands behind his back, looking at Yanming Jusher in front of him, waiting quietly. It was still the same shadow that crossed the jujube forest at dawn. Yanming Jusher used his qinggong to leap over, and left a mark on the two jujube trees. However, after a while, he was stunned. Because on the two jujube trees, other than the two deep marks he had just made, there were no other marks on the tree trunks. What about the sword marks he had made on the tree last month? Scholar Yanming was surprised. The sword mark that was 3 inches deep into the tree couldn't be healed in a month. Even if it was healed, there should still be a mark. Could it be that it wasn't the 2 jujube trees that were affected? Yenming Jushi's heart skipped a beat. This is bad. If it wasn't the original entrance, I'm afraid it would be troublesome to enter the forest. As he thought about it, he carefully examined the nearby wild jujube trees, but he found nothing. It seemed that he had never carved any marks on the trees of this forest. At this time, a short and stout young man in black clothes with a sincere face came up to him and asked, "Martial Uncle Yenming, do you have any questions?" Yenming Jushi looked back and saw Tan Feng from the Tan family. Scholar Yenming couldn't help but smile. The people from the Tan family were all short, plump and honest. They looked very reassuring. It was really as if they were from the same family. He smiled and told Tan Feng the reason. When Tan Feng heard this, he said, "That's easy." Then he said to a thin young man in white, who looked like a scholar, "Brother Zhang, why don't you come with me and see if there are any sword marks on the trees? Brother Lu and Martial Uncle Yenming, can you go over there and see if there are any sword marks?" The scholar was Zhang Xiaoyang from the 10,000 Swords Peak. His face was thin and his eyes were sharp. He didn't say much and only said, "Okay." He then turned around and walked to the other side. Tan Feng followed behind him, his eyes carefully looking at the jujube trees in the periphery. Lu Yueming was still looking at Yenming Jushi with a smile, waiting for his orders. Yenming Jushi didn't say much. After greeting him, he turned around and walked to the other side. Lu Yueming also quickly followed behind him. Yenming Jushi walked a few steps and then slowed down. He muttered in his heart. In fact, the sword mark from last time was in the vicinity. If he went any further, he definitely wouldn't find it. Was there a need to look all around the periphery of the sour date forest? Lu Yueming, who was behind him, seemed to understand his thoughts. He said from behind, "Uncle Yenming, is this where the mark you carved last time?" Yenming Jushi stopped in his tracks and turned around to say, "Yeah, I think there shouldn't be any further ahead." Lu Yueming continued, "Then Uncle Yenming will carefully look around here. How about this junior go and take a look?" Yenming Jushi said with a smile, "The Misty School really is getting stronger with each generation. This sect leader is so lucky to have all the outstanding disciples under his tutelage. Okay, you go take a look. Be careful. I'll stay here." Lu Yueming also smiled and nodded. He continued to look around, leaving Yenming Jushi behind him. Leaving aside Yenming Jushi, who stayed in place and thought about what to do next, the other 3 looked from the beginning to the end of the sour date forest. Just as Yenming Jushi expected, they didn't find anything. Everyone couldn't help but fall silent. The premise of their previous discussion was to enter from the original entrance. Since the entrance was different from before, then the steps of their discussion were obviously invalid. What should they do? The 3 of them stood quietly, thinking while waiting for Yenming Jushi's instructions. This time, the 3 of them came to the 5-clawed peak in the same way as the 4 sects did last time. They all sent their second-generation disciples, but this time they did it more secretly. As early as the leaders of the 4 sects returned from Mount Wudong, they frequently sent different disciples to different places to deal with affairs. They were afraid that the spies of other sects would figure out their details. These 3 people were just one of the operations. Only a moment before they set off, the leaders of the 4 sects told them the goal of this operation, and secretly told them everything they should pay attention to. After they left, there were still many disciples sent out continuously. Even many of the core figures in the 4 sects didn't know who was carrying out what task. Therefore, these 3 people could hide from the spies of other sects and smoothly arrive here. The disciples who could be sent to participate in this matter were, of course, the leaders of the 4 sects. After knowing the preciousness of the secret plane, the 4 sects would not take it lightly. Moreover, these 3 people had all taken the secret pills of the 4 sects. Their profound skills were also quite powerful in Jianghu. Otherwise, Lu Yueming alone could easily deal with the 7 people of Shitsue Mountain yesterday. If it were Wenhai and Xueqing a month ago, it would not be so easy. Although they had made a mistake in their operation, the 3 of them were all people with calm personalities. Even Tan Feng, who appeared to be a little boorish, remained silent and focused, quietly waiting for Scholar Yanming's orders. Scholar Yanming pondered for a long time and said, "Since the entrance is no longer the same as before, it might not necessarily be unsafe. However, we can't just follow what we've said before and enter the forest according to the chant we used last time. Perhaps there will be a new chant this time. You all should bring your own skins. I'm sure your teachers have already told you how to use them. Now let's see if the chant is the same." When everyone heard this, they took out their skins from their arms, cut their fingers with a knife, and wiped the blood on it. However, this time everyone, including Yanming Jusher, was even more stunned. The place where the chant was originally displayed was now blank. The others didn't feel anything, but Yanming Jusher immediately broke out in a cold sweat. Even though his martial arts had greatly improved, he couldn't help but be on guard. He turned his head and looked around vigilantly. This was too strange. Yanming Jusher, who had originally been ambitious and wanted to go in and reap a harvest, was now unwilling to go in no matter what. He had roamed the Jianghu for so many years, and had never heard of words written on skins disappearing. This thing had already exceeded Yanming Jusher's scope of understanding. He was timid and cautious, but as a veteran of the Jianghu, he immediately determined that this was a minefield. They couldn't take half a step forward. The best way was to obediently wait until the 15th of the first month of the next year, and try their luck again. However, Yanming Jusher didn't show any signs of fear. He still said casually, "Since the chant isn't here, there must be two reasons. The first is that this time is the same as last time. The second is that the chant hasn't appeared yet because the time isn't right." Speaking up to this point, he didn't quite believe his own two explanations. If it was the same as last time, then the chant should have appeared just like last time. But what if the time wasn't right? In this world, there really weren't any words that could be related to the time, and only appear when the time was right. This was too inconceivable. In short, no matter what the reason was, Yanming Jusher said, "We don't have the chant right now. We can't guarantee that the chant we used last time can be used now. In view of this situation, I don't recommend that everyone enter the forest. What do you guys think?" The three people in front of Yanming Jusher, although their martial arts weren't as good as his, and their seniority wasn't as high as his, they still represented their respective schools. Yanming Jusher still looked at them very patiently, waiting for their answers. Lu Yueming's eyes turned, but he didn't speak. In fact, before coming here, Openg had already explained that although the matter of the secret plane was very important, the Misty School's current strength was enough. Expanding their territory was the most important thing. Of course, it would be good to be able to enter the secret plane and obtain precious herbs. Even if they couldn't enter, they had to first keep this secret and leave it for next year. Therefore, Lu Yueming already had a plan in mind. Seeing that Yanming Jusher seemed to have the same thoughts as him, he didn't say much. Tan Feng of the Tan family frowned. Previously, the head of the family had said that safety and confidentiality were first. It didn't matter if they didn't enter the secret plane. However, he was very curious. He really wanted to see what kind of place could grow 100-year-old herbs. He weighed for a long time, then raised his head and said, "When the head of the family came, he already said that everything here will be arranged by Martial Uncle Yanming. I have no objections." Yanming Jusher nodded, then looked at Lu Yueming. Lu Yueming naturally also agreed. Finally, he looked at Zhang Zhaoyang of the Wanjian Peak. Zhang Zhaoyang didn't frown and think like Tan Feng. His face was calm, his eyes looking at the Swanjujube forest as if it was a small forest where he played as a child. He seemed to have decided long ago, but had been waiting for other people's decision. At this time, seeing that Yanming Jusher listened to his opinion, he smiled faintly and said, "Martial Uncle Yanming, my family's sword master has already instructed that no matter what dangers there are in this forest, the herbs inside must be brought back. I think I must explore this Swanjujube forest." Zhang Zhaoyang's words were very unexpected. He thought that he would also listen to Yanming Jusher's arrangement. He wanted to go in, but it gave Yanming Jusher a difficult problem. However, thinking back to the meeting at Wutong Mountain, Wan Qingjiu wanted to go in the most. It was not difficult to understand why he gave this order. But if the others didn't want to go in, did they let Zhang Xiaoyang go in alone? Yanming Jusher pondered for a long time, but didn't know how to answer him. Zhang Xiaoyang saw that Yanming Jusher didn't directly answer him, and naturally knew what he was thinking. He cupped his hands to Yanming Jusher and the other two and said, "Martial Uncle Yanming, brothers, I have already made preparations to enter the forest this time. There shouldn't be any danger. If you all don't want to go with me, then let me go in alone. I can also help you all scout the way. What do you think?" The last sentence was directed at Yanming Jusher. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.